All right. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. It is STARJUMP Shipyard. It is Thursday night, 9 p.m. I know it's a bit of an odd time for Shipyard. Obviously, we usually do them on Tuesdays, and then Thursday night is my sort of weekly chat night. But we're switching it up a little bit because I'm way behind on reacting and discussing the Ship Showdown Q&A. It's something I usually cover whenever John Crew and Ben Curtis talk ships in any way. Obviously, that's something I'm going to cover on Shipyard, but I was just late to it. I've been very busy. So I've had a lot of discussions with a fellow content creator that you all know very well about a lot of the stuff in the Ship Showdown. And I thought, you know what, might as well bring him on the show. I know you all have seen him many, many times. So I'm going to switch it over now. I got Execute joining me tonight. Execute, hello, hello. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yourself?
Good, good, good. It's been kind of I'm probably the last person to react to the Ship Showdown. I've seen everyone do content. Now I think I was on your show talking a little bit about it. I was on Captain's Table. We talked a little bit about it, but I haven't done it on my stuff at all. And I really wanted to, so now seemed like a good time.
One of the things when we've done stuff late is you always get the benefit of hindsight and little things that trickle out, and you get to cover a bit more in a weird way.
Yeah, and
it's not always the best.
Yeah, and I think we have a bit more to talk about in regards to the Apollo. There's some new stuff that's come out. Obviously, most of all of you in chat have seen it. But first off, everyone in chat, thanks for joining us again. I know it's an odd time. Please share the channel. Share the chat. Oh, hello, Starlet. I think I saw VMXCO as well. VM,
I'm gonna do it like Grim. I can't do the.
Got to do the double salute, man. But yeah, thanks for those of you watching. I know again it's a kind of an odd time for us, but please share with your friends and other communities the channels and try to get people here. I'm very close to 15,000 subscribers on the YouTube. I think we're only like 60 or 50 away, so we're real close.
You doing a giveaway for 15K?
Yes, I'm giving away a Kruger wolf. I'll give away a wolf.
I wanted soul. I wanted your soul.
And then for the month of October, it is looking very likely that I'll be giving away an Apollo when they come out. So nice. I have one and just don't particularly have a need for it, so it might be a cool ship to give away. So yes, when we hit 15K, which I do think will be this week sometime, well, week's almost over, but by the end of the weekend, I think we'll hit the 15,000 subscribers. I have a wolf to give away, and it comes with the concierge skin or whatever. So, and maybe the red skin. I may have got the red skin too, which is a really cool one. I think probably the best paint job. So,
definitely going fast on us. We've been really slow for a while.
Yeah. Def just gave out 5 community subs. Thank you very much, dude. Appreciate you. Hope you are well. Thanks for those gifted subs, everyone. Please give him a nice big old salute. Really appreciate that support. Again, the support's been great so far. Channel's been growing, getting good traction. So I do appreciate that, everyone. Again, especially with my inconsistency in streaming. However, obviously, I've been trying to stay pretty good with it, especially for the Tuesday show. And then the Thursday show, weekly chat show, is sort of like a little hit or miss, but it's somewhat.
How dare you? How dare you work?
How dare I have a life?
How dare you have a life and work and make money?
Yes. All right, we're going to jump right into it.
After last weekend and the sailor talk, I was like, because I was trying
this
to be
this is the after hours show. This is the after hours show. So I got
to get into practice again of being un-Australian and just like bring it down 4 or 5 levels.
Yeah. Well, for those of you wondering too, it's always nice to, we talked a little bit about this before, but it's always nice to have a other people that are really passionate about spaceships, whether it's Execute, VMXEO, whomever, to come on and talk ships. I was just talking to another person in the STARJUMP community the other day who's also very passionate and wants to come on every now and then. So it's always nice to have someone who you can kind of back and forth some of these discussions with about some of the ships that has a lot of interest in it, just like I do, and get different perspectives, different opinions.
Well, we always say that with the speculation, never do it alone.
Never do it alone. Yeah, and because you get checked, and then
you always want. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. C Daddy CIG, salute to you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for hanging out as me and Execute run through the Ship Showdown Q&A. Again, everyone, I know I'm late to this. You've probably already seen a ton of content where people have talked about this, but we may tangent. You do have Execute and Grim here, so it's very possible we are going to tangent wildly, but that's okay. I think generally, as long as we stay focused on two things, we're good. One, spaceships, and two, the gameplay surrounding those ships. Those, to me, when on Shipyard episodes, that's the key thing, as long as we kind of keep it focused there. So let's go ahead and get started. I do have a little bit of a cold tonight, so if it looks like I am on drugs, that is the issue. I'm just blowing my nose, scratching my nose a lot.
We're just looking to see if your head goes down with a straw, then we'll know.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We're going to go ahead and bust into it. I may... I do have the video up, so if we need to listen to anything, like any exact words that they say, but I am going to be using the actual Ship Showdown Q&A video is our kind of chapter reference, because some user, who was it? Not Napalm. Thank you, Not Napalm, if you happen to watch this, went through and did chapters for all the questions on the YouTube video, which is super helpful, by the way. Thank you very much. With CIG did that. So the first thing
CIG don't tag anything.
Yes, terrible. I know. So the first thing we're going to talk about, the very first question on this, and again, if any of you have things you want to say or bring it up in chat, bring them up. We'll try to catch them. Obviously, I do not have the bot running. I do need to get with Piggles eventually on that, but we'll try to catch stuff if we don't. Sorry. But first thing on the list to talk about is the 600i rework. UCIG said the same thing they always say in regards to this, which is it's not currently being worked on because it was a concept that was shown off, not active production work. One thing to know about that too, everybody, is it's actually different teams. I think they all are under the ship team, but the concept team is different from the actual ship production team. There's sort of two different groups. Concept artists, a lot of them, I guarantee you, don't even know how to build things for games in terms of game optimized models and meshes. They're painting, they're sketching, they're doing rough concept models, all that kind of good stuff. But, my thought on this, I don't know where you're at, Execute. I don't think we're going to see the 600i concept rework. I think it's going to take a while, primarily because it really is a full new ship on the inside, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
So I absolutely agree. It's a whole new ship on the inside, and you can connect a lot of dots here. So like priority is a really big thing. Why would you redo the interior of one ship when you can redo a whole nother ship?
Yeah,
you're not going to get any new gameplay by doing the 600i because it really needs the AI stuff, and that's not there yet. So I think you'd be waiting to at least then minimum, and then again you'd probably see it and say something like the E1, which is a smaller little test bed ship that you can do. And again, I'll put it this way: what would you rather see, the Genesis Starliner or a 600i rework?
Right. Yeah, I'd like this. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And so this is literally like a kicking down the road thing. They essentially did this to appease the people that knew it needed a rework, but also it gave them time to work on other stuff. So this is our plans. This is why we're showing you. So we have heard you. We have reworked it. We are going to change it. It's just not now. This is to let you know. Whenever it is, 1, 2, 5, 10 years. I don't know how long it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be that long.
And what I think makes this even less, and what I think even makes this less of a priority. And by the way, the interior, the new concept images, two things about them. One, they are very like sketchy and painty. I think there is some mesh work going on here, but they're very painty and sketchy, which means they didn't go deep into like model work. But
well, look at the look at the human figures; they're essentially silhouettes.
And then the other thing I think that's important to recognize about this particular ship and the concept work and when it would be slotted in for actual production work, like what the priority is there, is you have to kind of look at the two gameplay loops that the 600i is tying into at this point in time. Exploration, which we have no real clear roadmap for yet, or no like specific exploration gameplay, and touring, which also isn't a thing really, beyond just like RP emergent gameplay.
I would argue you need both of those.
Right. What's different is if this was let's say these were concept images of something like the Reclaimer rework, like let's say if that's what this was, there would be more, I think, of an impetus for CIG to do that work because salvage is currently in game and some of the Reclaimer just doesn't function properly. So it feels like there's more of an impetus to actually do that production work, where this being exploration and touring, there's no real rush to get this done. If we were on the cusp of passenger gameplay coming out, like if that was like something that was 6 months away and, CIG started talking more about NPCs in our ships and how the mix master is going to work and stuff, you probably would see the 600i start getting some work. But,
well, like you said, with the Reclaimer, you've essentially got gameplay that's in there that you'd have to keep consistent.
Right.
So say they bring out that medium salvager they talked about, so if that came out, you would, and it had some slightly different gameplay features that the Reclaimer couldn't do, then they would need to rework it to keep it consistent. But right now, as you alluded to and I alluded to, there is no touring and there's no exploration, so there's just no point.
Yeah. So it's for those of you 600i, and don't forget too, not only that, but they've said that the executive variant, the Legatus Navium version that you get, is going to have additional changes beyond what I think that's going to be. By the way, the Legatus Navium version of the 600i, I think it's going to be the touring version, but with just more gold and sparkle on it. And when I say gold and sparkle, meaning the interiors. The base touring version may have a little fountain inside of it with a statue, but the executive version is going to have that same statue, but maybe with some extra pieces, and maybe it's gold. Like there's going to be some additional flourishes on the inside, but it's going to primarily, I think, be based off the touring variant, if I had to guess.
Yeah, it would have been cool if they, well, again, I guess it leads to the modularity, but I was meant to represent modularity.
Yeah.
So it would have been really cool if they had like a 615p, and I think the touring would probably be just the 600i. That's kind of how I would have differentiated them.
Yeah.
But again, they actually do want you to be able to swap those modules.
Yeah. So I'm 90% sure I remember them saying that, or it came up somewhere. Chat, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But VMXEO just said in chat 600i utility win. I would pose that as a question to you, XQ. Currently,
so would that be a 635C?
635. Sure. Yeah. But let me ask you this:
because the original version of the 600i was a cargo variant, the oldest version.
Right.
So anyway,
currently the only, besides the odd one-off like exploration with the 600i, currently Origin, and correct me if I'm wrong, Origin only plays in 2 playgrounds, like touring luxury and combat. Weirdly, do they play anything else?
I'd say touring, luxury, exploration, and the combat's the outlier.
Okay.
Because the only combat ships we have is the one, was it the 125 and the 325A.
Okay.
They're the 2 outliers. Not all the others. If you essentially look at them, they're like flying safe rooms.
Yeah.
They're over-engineered. They're very defensive. They're designed to just, like, as soon as you're under attack, get out of there. Like a like the president's motorcade. Like if they take hits, the whole thing is just get out of there.
Yeah. Here, I really think that this. I do think that the Origin, as a manufacturer, I really do think they need to play in one more playground to really get better usage out of some of these ships. Right. Well, what I was going to say, I don't know what you think. I was going to think they're like the perfect manufacturer to lean into science and research gameplay. Like I could see a 600i that is
Yeah.
filled with like high-end computers that can do the research on
Mm.
blueprints and upgrade them and stuff like that. And maybe there's additional tie-ins or something. I don't know. I could see them leaning into that, like in some sort of
Yeah.
high-end research
I
field.
a cross between science and medical is something I could propose. So he was talking like,
well, medical,
he
yeah.
envisioned like a high-end medical clinic where you could go get you know, prosthetics care, or like totally change the way you look, stuff like that. So you've seen it in things like Cyberpunk where they get all chromed up. You've got ones where you can physically change the way that you look and stuff like that. So life extensions and all that something, all that really, all those very dystopian things you see in sci-fi that the really wealthy people do, things like that, you know.
Think like Elysium and you know, where the people that lived on, you know, it's like this like almost like elitist kind of thing. I would love to see them tie into that, because there are some Origin ships I genuinely do love. Like you know, and I would say the 600i is one of those. I agree with CIG in that the exterior is kind of there. I think Ben Curtis even said that recently, that they're pretty happy with where the exterior is at. I would just love to see the 600i. It's a big ship. It requires a lot of work. Go ahead and, while you're doing those other two modules, go ahead and do a third that is interesting and ties into some future gameplay that maybe we don't have yet. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just think that could be really cool.
Yeah, I just sent you an image, which is the one from the
you know what, this this is good for me to have up. Let me grab this.
So you kind of look at where they placed Origin there on the stars guides, and it's essentially halfway between commercial and high tech.
There it is. Let me pull it up real quick, everybody, so you know what we're talking about. There we go.
Yeah, so if you look at that, like where are all the commercial ships from Origin? And there just isn't any. So more than likely they're going to have shop ships, you know, and once you put a shop in, think about all the high-end stuff you can put in a shop, because say you've got two shops, you've got a Drake one and an Origin one, you're not going to be selling tacos in a high-end shop, and you're not going to have a high-end luxury restaurant in a Drake one. Like it's just... So you need to have different tech levels, essentially. And by the same thing with the doctor's surgery. A Drake doctor's surgery, like look at Grimhex, is going to be very different to, say, Hurston with the Maria of Heart, or even Origin, or, you know, so you can have these three levels, high, medium, and low. And so you are going to need different shop ships. And I reckon at the moment, Kruger, I don't know if Kruger will go into shops, but I'd say at the moment, the only two contenders we've got for high end, maybe three, would be the Banu, Origin, and maybe Misk. Maybe.
I could definitely see it with Origin. That would be really cool. I think it would be a nice counter to... and you're talking NPC shops, right?
Well, yeah, that'll player owned, but I think in most cases they'll be NPC owned.
I do think it would make a nice counterpart to what the current lineup is, which is Banu, which is going to be very exotic, alien, you know what I mean? But, you know, counter that with Drake, which is going to be sort of your down and dirty strip mall sort of thing in space. This would be a nice counter to that. So it makes a lot of sense.
Well, again, you know, you'd almost think like, well, if there's only a shop in every slot, right? You'd essentially you'd have capital, large, medium, small type of thing, right? At the moment, the two shop ships we have both fall into the capital category, one having 10, one having 8. So when you kind of run that through, does that essentially mean you're going to have a 6, 4, 2, and a 1?
Yeah.
In those, you start to think, and then you start to think of tech levels, and you kind of realize there's probably going to be 3 ships that have one shop in it.
Yeah.
But they're at each tech level. So it's going to be really interesting to see. I think it's just it kind of requires the room system and base building for that to all come online. But once they get it there, they can use those base building foundations to essentially work out how the rooms are going to work. And then essentially you're just taking that room and you're placing it into a ship. Like, it's not that complicated. And then all you're doing is limiting it via tech levels. So you can see why they're waiting, because it's they need that bit, and then that's just like pick it up and place it into a ship. So it makes sense. I can almost see why the Banner Merchantman was coming where it was coming, because they would have used the Banner Merchantman to work with the room system. I can see the thought pattern there.
Yeah. And by the way,
like it makes sense.
I see a couple of people asking where Sino and Kruger is. This chart just didn't have all of them listed. It's something Execute
really old,
is.
too. It's about 18 months old now. It's pretty.
Yeah,
pretty
it's something you may have heard Execute say on his show before, that we would love an updated version of this chart from CIG. That'd be really.
I think it should permanently be on the website.
Yeah,
it tells you a lot. What is it? An image speaks 1,000 words, but it's just really interesting to see where things land there.
Speaking of that, one thing I really hope CIG does at some point, and I don't know what it would all encompass, but for new players, especially entering Star Citizen for the first time, I think it would be great. Right now, ships occupy a place on the RSI website as essentially a storefront, right? You click on the manufacturer, you go to the ship, you can see either you can purchase it or not. There is a decent amount of information about the ship on there. Of course, a lot of it can be inaccurate on Spectrum, we know that, but at least the information is somewhat there and presented. At the very least, the role of the ship is pretty solid. But what I would love in that ship section, there's always maybe a hyperlink to it, is some sort of what to consider when buying a ship sort of page from CIG that went through some things that maybe talked about, hey, look, we have gameplay loops. Those gameplay loops are going to work with specific ships. What type of player are you? Are you wanting to do industrial? Then you should look at these industrial type shit. You know what I mean? Some sort of like primer, because what I do see, I do talk to a lot of people about spaceships, obviously, especially coming into the game. And I can tell you, one of the first things people do is go for what looks cool. They say, oh, that ship looks cool. I just like it. And you're like, yeah, but don't do what you're wanting to do. I know what you're wanting to, you know what I mean? And so just some sort of primer, I think it could be a one-pager, but I think that would be really good for CIG to do at some point, as we get closer to 1.0.
Yeah, we heard things back like that from CIG, that most people buy spaceships purely on how they look, because you don't have a lot else to go by at the moment,
Well, and if you,
so it would be good to have a little bit more information.
And unless you've had experience with Eve and Elite, you don't know that all the spaceships have specialties, and in a sense, they're like a class in an MMO, like a fantasy RPG game. They're sort of playing that role. You just think, oh, it's a spaceship, and I can do whatever I need to do, and you know what I mean. So I can get some of the confusion there, especially if you're a player coming from a game like No Man's Sky, or there are other games where the spaceships are more generic in nature. They're a way to get from A to B instead of this is how you mine, or this is how you access a gameplay loop. So I could see that. Cool. So obviously we tangent a little bit. Talk about 600i though. It's just an interesting ship. I think it would be nice to see Origin play and some future gameplay loops. I think obviously the NPC markets is a great one. I think doing stuff like research and some of the science gameplay, which I think will be opening up more and more once crafting comes into the game, and we have things like tiers of items and stuff like that. So
I think that'll come with seeing Kruger fill out too. As I said, when seeing another high level or high quality ship, there really is only like 3 very obvious manufacturers, being the Danu, the Kruger, and Origin. But I think there are some others that are just under that, and that's why I say MISC, because MISC has some of that alien tech.
Yeah.
And I'd probably say Sinus can be just below them a bit. So there is this. It's not just 3 shades. It's not like black, white, and grey. I think there is a little bit of mix in between there as well. And obviously there'll probably be a hard-cutted line. But how do I put this? Vaguely speaking, if you have a Drake, I'd expect it to break more often but be cheaper to repair, like a Toyota Corolla or whatever. But then if you have like a BMW, being like the Origin, they hardly ever break, but when they do, they cost quite a bit to repair. And then obviously the best will be something in the middle.
And if not cheaper to repair at all times, maybe it's faster to repair or whatever, but whatever the bonuses there are. But maybe the Origin has higher durability or higher longevity or whatever.
or harder to get the parts. So maybe it's not more expensive just because Origin parts are maybe only made at Origin's factory, and they just have less. Or like here in Australia, if you have a BMW, it costs, the main cost is actually not the part; it's the cost to get the part to you
over there. Yeah,
it's got to get here from the other side of the world, from Germany.
And I also don't think it should just be regulated to manufacture. I think it should be a little bit more complicated than that, where size is a factor too. So, for example, a Kraken might still be pretty damn expensive to deal with versus a cutter. You know, I mean, I know there'll be a cost difference between the two, but even if you take two capital ships like an Idris and a Kraken, the Kraken's still going to be expensive because it's a you're dealing with capital level repairs, capital level everything, still capital components. So if you're replacing those components, it's down to a component price and the component manufacturer and stuff like that. So,
well, so you look at Stanton with all the access, you would expect it to be cheaper than Pyro.
Exactly. System. Yep.
Then also because Crusader makes their ships in Stanton, there's probably more, generalistically, more Crusader ships than other manufacturers because they're just cheaper to buy here because they don't have to transport them.
And even going further, I hope those prices and all that stuff is dynamically adjusted based off what's going on. So, for example, in the Nix system in the future, if what I think a lot of us think is going to happen, Soren, thank you for that follow, appreciate it. If what we think is going to happen in Nix, which is there's going to be these little Vandal incursions every now and then, I would expect when Vandal incursions are high, prices for fuel and things like that are going to be high. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see how CIG does that. But
risk versus reward, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is a good segue into the next question that was posed during the Q&A, which was how many existing ships need upgrades / polish before engineering can be released? Summary answer to this question is that a lot of them are kind of ready, especially the ones where it would make a difference. They're kind of there. A lot of the ones that maybe don't have it fully integrated seem to be a lot of the single-seaters, which we've all sort of, and CIG's made no mystery about this. The single-seater ships, the engineering is going to be there, but because you don't actually have an active engineering tuner role going on, you're piloting the ship, it's sort of like you set it up and now you're piloting it and you're stuck with whatever that setup is. I think there's going to still be things like misfires and stuff like that that are going to require restarts, but the engineering gameplay is going to be a lot more limited.
If you think about it logically, being inside one ship is very similar to being inside another, right? But then as soon as you go to a single seat fighter and you're on the outside of the ship, you've got EVA to contend with. And then you've obviously, when you're in your hangar, you're standing on the outside of the ship, which is probably a lot more like being inside the ship. But realistically, you've got to work on one first. So because one's got two components to it and one's got one, you work with the easier one first. So doing the internal ones makes sense to me, and then make sure that's working. Again, keep it simple and then expand it. And that's what they seem to do with almost everything they do.
Yeah, and this has deviated a bit from what CIG originally planned for engineering. If you go back to when engineering first hit the EPTU or the tech preview or whatever the hell it came out on, it originally, I remember this very clearly, originally CIG said it was going to come out for the Hammerhead first, and I think maybe one other ship. When it eventually did come to the tech preview, it was actually the Hercules, I think, that they had it on. And then it kind of went off the tech preview, and then we didn't see it for now, it's been like a year or something. And now it feels like it's on the cusp of coming back, but now CIG seems to be saying it's going to be on all the ships that matter for it, which is good. I personally wanted CIG to do that, not just throw engineering into the game and make it apply only to one ship, because my concern with that is that then no one would fly that ship because it's going to require more upkeep. It needs to be a holistic, like, all ships that it applies to it needs to affect, because to me it's a game
same page.
It to get them all leveled correctly and for testing purposes. So anyways, that's the answer to that one. We'll keep moving on. This next one was again another one of those questions I personally wish they didn't ask during the ship showdown. I thought it was a waste, which was how do you choose the color scheme for the showdown paints each year?
So instead of talking about that, let's talk about how people basically just want the attention and they ask stupid questions, because I think that's what happens a lot of time. People go, oh, how can I get them to ask my question? And they just ask stupid questions. Because the other one was is there going to be any more Star Kitten skins? Well, of course there are.
Right. Right.
It's really obvious.
The issue I have with this particular question, by the way, is if every time there was and this is, and a lot of people say I'm a CIG white knight, but here you go. Here you're about to get some criticism, because I do criticize CIG sometimes and some of the decisions. If every time Best in Show paints came out, they were always like these wild, unique, crazy paint jobs, it'd be one thing. I'd have some interest in it. But when it's just purple one year and red the next year, I don't know if I need the backstory on why it went from red to orange. You know what I mean? Like, if it was tiger stripes with decals and other stuff on it, okay, I'm kind of interested in what the backstory is there. But we're generally talking about, and again, slight knock on CIG here, but sometimes the Best in Show paints are pretty lazy, in my opinion. The one year I thought they were super cool was when they did, what was it, purple or blue, and it had like the swirlies in it. I thought that was really cool.
Well, that's why last year was very lazy. They essentially copied the year before and did just a slightly different year, because they're clearly working on something, so they just knocked it out super quick. So they had all the Cerulean stuff from the year before, and basically went, well, we can just reuse everything if we do another shade of purple. So they won't do that this year because they got a heap of flack for it. So well, let's hope anyway.
Yeah, so that's the answer to that question. We won't spend a lot of time on that. This next one, though, is an interesting one here. Any plans to prioritize legacy starters to Gold Pass? Now, this is something that came up a little bit recently with UXQ. I think you brought it up to me and Tristpone, and I had already talked to VMXEO a couple times. Yeah, okay.
I'm going to give credit where credit's due. Agrid's the one that brought it up to my attention, and then we talked about, then I brought it to you and Tris.
Yeah, so obviously their response to that was yes. The one that is currently being sort of prepped to go into an update phase for Gold Pass is the Aurora series. Now, again, Ben Curtis was quick to remind everyone that he's got issues with the word Gold Pass, which I agree with him on. It's probably not the best terminology. It's just bring them up to current standards. And those standards are always going to get more advanced as the game goes on. But, you know, the Aurora is definitely a ship that a lot of people have thought about. I guess we could talk about the Aurora in general. I'm not expecting very many changes to it personally, other than just component access and a few things. I've seen some wild speculation around it that it was going to grow and this and that. I don't think we're going to see anything like that personally. I don't know what you think.
It's going to have to have a very interesting way to access the components, because you go look around that thing, and basically because of the double wing design, it's very hard to get to the body of the craft.
Yeah.
So are they going to make them come out like really far?
Like on these trays that sort of slide out or something? Yeah.
So it's going to have something pretty unique to get it to work.
Yeah. I mean, starter ship.
But go look, it's got some. There's just not a lot of places to put components in it.
Yeah.
You know, you've essentially got the cockpit at the front. You've then got these two double wings all the way down the sides, and then you've essentially got the engine at the back. There's only this little space that's kind of like just behind the docking collar before it goes into the wings. That little area there, and again, like directly on the other side of the wall is the tunnel for the bed. So there's not, you know, and directly under the bed is that giant cargo box. So there's not, the only real place that we've kind of found was like the floor of the, you know, and if you'd have to thicken that up a bit as well. It's just, again, it was from a different time, and if you actually go look at the brochure, it actually shows the components, and they are not the same components we have now. They were all different shapes and sizes. Like some were really flat, like a pizza box. Now most of the components are versions of rectangles and boxes. You know, so they've changed. So many things has changed.
I may be mistaken, but you know, when you open up a game file, like an FBX, like game asset of a ship in Cinema or Blender or whatever you're opening it in, a lot of times it does have the components along with the ship model itself. There, it comes with like default components, and those components are always generally located where the components go. There are some really old ships though, where the components are just kind of in the center of the hull, hidden. And the Apollo is one of those. So yeah, obviously that's something they need to account for.
It'd be all those
are you
older ones.
expecting any like exterior changes where they like sort of like what they did with the Freelancer or Cutlass or any or like the Mustangs? Are you expecting any sort of like exterior change to the ship at all?
If you can bring up the model for the Aurora, I'd be happy to go through it with you because it is
Yeah.
very, as I said, it's not. We couldn't really find anywhere that we went. That's obvious.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't think I have the
and
model
it
ready at
makes
this time, but
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So one of the places I've considered, and I've only really considered this in the last week or so, is back where the engine is, having something that essentially comes out from the sides at the back,
Yeah.
but it has to extend out to where the wings are, like a rack or something.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that's going to kind of make sense because then you can go either side of the engine
Yeah.
and essentially have the components there.
It's
But
going to
again, being
be,
such a
yeah.
small starter, yeah, you can see what I mean. Like there's like that. You can see the space I'm talking about there between
Yeah.
the wing and the dock.
The funny thing is that
So
there
yeah,
is room on the top spine, but how do you get up there?
yeah,
You know what I mean?
and that's what I meant about the wings. So the only thing I can think of is some kind of rack that comes out between the wings.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only thing that kind of, and I've only come to that idea in the last while because again we've seen it on other ships where what I'm thinking of is the MTC.
Yeah.
So the MTC had that rack that kind of
Yeah.
came out and the components did that thing. So we've got a proven use for it. And again, components between an MTC and an Aurora's, vehicle, so it's like one size difference. So you can see them using a similar
Mm-hmm.
thing. Yeah.
Do you think the Aurora is too? It's probably a weird word, an overly dramatic word, but do you feel like the Aurora is too beloved of a ship for them to make any major changes to exterior wise? Because that is one thing I hear from people that are like, whenever I mention, like, even when we did that experiment of like the Aurora Mark II, people are like, it's perfect as is. Don't change. You know what I mean? There was like, seem to be kind of passionate about not changing the Aurora.
There's a comfortability to it, and it is the kind of the standard starter. It has to kind of be neutral, and I think it is kind of neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think they need to change it too much. I think one of the things is like just being 5 of them is a bit much. I think you could really bring it back to just being
I do too.
maybe 3. It's the same thing with the Mustang. Like there's literally an edition where it just has a leather seat. That's the whole difference for the variant.
Right, which is crazy. Do you think something like that CIG would be? I mean, there's precedent for it with the Mark I Hornets. Do you think it would be a good idea for them to maybe retire some of these?
I don't think they need so again I go back to what John Crew actually said about it was they were changing the visual look of the Hornets, and because of that's why they made a Mark II. I also think in time what's going to happen with the Mark IIs is essentially, if you think about the Squadron campaign, I think you're going to get the Mark Is at the start, and halfway through somewhere they'll update to the Mark IIs. I think that makes logical sense if you think it through. I don't think there is a need for Mark IIs on a lot of ships. I think it is really more of a case that this just needs an update because, again, you look at all the 5 ships that came at the Kickstarter, they're all the ones with the troubles because they've been here the longest. So what's that?
Waybreak says it there in chat. Waybreak says the Aurora is a symbol of SC. The funny thing is I've heard that about a number of ships. I heard about the Aurora. I heard about
Hornet,
the Gladius, the Connie, and the Hornet. Those are all kind of like... I've heard people say, what is it, like front of the box ships, right? Front of the box ships.
The first 5.
Yeah.
So that's Freelancer, Cutlass, Aurora, Connie, and Super Hornet. They're the first 5. And then you had ships rapidly that came out after that, like the Connie, the Retaliator, and then especially the Retaliator and Starfarer, because they were the first 2 big ships we ever saw.
Right.
And they were built for squadrons. So I would expect that they will get their reworks after squadrons come out, because then they don't want to change that stuff because it's already working.
Yeah.
And again, if they wanted to do marks, they're the ships that you would do marks on, because then they have a precedence where they appear somewhere in game.
Yeah.
So you leave that where it is. So there's your old Freelancer, there's your old Retaliator, there's your old Connie, and then move over to a new variant,
Yeah.
And literally, I think the Mark thing, specifically on RSI, is they have, I think we're up to the Mark 5 on the Connies anyway. Like the actual Aquila and the Andromeda and all that, they are actually different marks. That's where that Mark thing comes from. So Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see where they go with all that.
Next question was obviously, why was the Aurora moved as a starter package? Jared answered this, made sense. I don't think we need to go into that. It's just kind of an outdated ship. It was silly for it to be a starter package. I agree with CIG removing it as a starter package.
Don't worry, it'll be back. It'll be back when they get reworked, and also they wanted to move it around a little bit. Like they also said there was a lot of them sold.
Yeah, they got a lot of, I mean, and we've later heard that ships like the Cutter became increasingly popular. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Next question was, what happened to the Zeus fourth variant, the Zeus ST? This is something we've talked about since pretty much the Zeus was unveiled in its original concept thing, because John Crew mentioned in the Q&A that he accidentally put the Zeus ST slide in the presentation, which is kind of funny. It's always kind of funny sometimes when you hear people like make an honest mistake like that. It's like, oh damn, and he said that he recognized it during the presentation, that he left that up there, and I'm sure he was a little bit like, oh shit, The funny thing is,
I'm surprised we didn't hear it more in his voice. When he was talking.
Yeah, he played it off really well. Here's what I will say about this variant. The funny thing is from a look perspective, this is the Zeus I like the most. I love that it's got these little winglets that turn inward. I like the spoiler in the back. I love the little sunroof windows in the back here. So, I mean, I think it's a sport touring, right?
Yeah, that's what I think it is. I was gonna say, what do you think it is? Because I think it's one of two things.
Yeah,
I think it's.
I think it's a 600i touring, only in a smaller version. It's the smaller version of that. But it's more of a touring where it's like Connie Phoenix, where it's an experience. It's not like an E1 where you're just a passenger. It's more like the Phoenix.
So the 400i to the 600i, this is to the Phoenix.
That's what I think.
I think it falls under two things because of the multiple things they've done. So the extra fins, generally, when there's extra fins, that implies the only one that's different that's now broken that mold is the Meteor, right? But fins before the Meteor were generally only applied to racing variants, right? But that said, now it's another RSI ship that already has fins. I think that it's probably, like you said, and it's some kind of VIP transport, hence the sunroof at the back. We now have the sunroof on the Apollo as well that kind of lets the light in. We have it on some of the other ships like the E1 with the windows and stuff like that. So it is more of a touring thing. I think it does kind of make sense to have a smaller luxury vessel that actually rivals the E1. If you've got an E1 that's for business class, why wouldn't you also have the VIP? And I would almost say you could probably go a step further and have another variant that's the more commercial what do you put, domestic flight plane, like the Genesis.
Yeah, and if you think about in terms of like steps through the tiers of ships, if you think of that type of VIP transport where it's not like a VIP E1 where you have a seat you're assigned, but think more like Phoenix or 600i where there's a bar, you can walk around, there's a sitting area, all that, lounge areas, all that stuff. If the Connie Phoenix is at around that 60 meter-ish rank, right? You have the 600i above that at like 90-ish, right? You have the 890 jump going higher than that. The Zeus would sit right under the Connie Phoenix at about that, what is it, 38 meters or so, 42 meters, something like that. I forget what the Zeus is, but it would sit just a slight notch above that. And the interesting thing with that touring type ship is you can't get too small. It's not like you can have a starter touring ship. It's because the whole idea is that you have room to move around the ship, enjoy the luxuries of it. So I could see the Zeus ST sort of being your entry level VIP touring ship. You know what I mean? Now, there's still underneath, and that it would be about the same size as the E1. It's just a slightly different type of VIP gameplay, where the E1 is more focused on like you're a passenger in a seat.
Well, your business class with the E1, this is like first class, and then, as I said, the Genesis Starliner is like economy. I think the other thing to point out is you really couldn't go smaller than this, because again, once you drop down to medium, you're getting into, you get to small, you get to single seat fighter territory. So this really is the smallest you can kind of go to, unless you're doing something like the Pisces, which is a little shuttle with like 2 extra passengers. So really, you just can't get any smaller, because you're going into 85X and things like that. So
it starts
really
getting
the smallest you
it starts getting down to kind of like a silly level. There's certain ships, I think, that just sort of have to hit a certain size, where they make sense. So it's sort of like,
I think using this slide though, the status for Zeus status really put a lot of people, it's really stuff with a lot of people's heads, because people think it's literally called the status. Like a status symbol, like it's I think it's just, they at the time, if you go back and watch the video, he was literally talking about the status of the Zeus in production, and it just is very unfortunate that people have locked onto ST. And I think we would all agree, well, anyone with common sense, this is not what it is. If they literally troll us and bring it out and call it the Zeus status, I will be so surprised. But I really think it's sports touring. Again, it's really common in the automotive industry. You see it around everywhere. It makes a lot of sense. So they generally have like a normal version and then like a performance version, and this is essentially the performance version of the Zeus lineup.
Because the only other thing I could think of would be ST standing for standard, but that's they said it's a gameplay loop that's not in game yet, and a standard would obviously be more of a generic variant of the ship. So let's go ahead and move on. Go ahead.
Well, just very quickly before you move on, the reason I also think it is more like in line with the 600i and the 400i and the Phoenix is you look at what it's got on it. It's got a sunroof that nothing else has got. The only other variant of this that has 2 guns is the Marquis, or the Marquis Mark. So it's got 2 guns. It plays that safe room role like we talk about on the other Origin ships and stuff like that. So that all those little key things I'm saying, all the little extras are pointing it to being that premium markup and more like a safe room. I wouldn't also be surprised if you see down the sides there, it almost looks like it's got more armor on the sides where the passengers are. I think that's deliberate.
The only interesting thing about this, I see Cody Fox said science and technology. That'd be interesting. The only interesting thing about this image, though, is this ship is flying through a damn war zone. It's like all guns are firing,
Is it running? Is it like, are they under attack because they're VIPs? Like, there's things always put out there as well. So
and one thing that is highlighted here is the shield repelling some of the incoming fire. So it almost maybe signalizes.
So it's probably got bigger shields, like the ES has a 3rd shield over the other 2 variants. So maybe it's a combination. So if you take the best of the 3 variants and put them all the best up on one ship, that's what I'm kind of expecting in there. So it's got the shields off the ES, it's got the extra gun off the Marquis, and then something that maybe it's got the tractor beam off the CL, or it's got the bigger cargo bay like the CL. We'll have to find out. But that cargo bay is then converted into area for the crew. But look, again, if it was a science special, Cody, it would actually have less turrets. So if you look at things like the Sen or the Endeavor and stuff like that, they don't have a lot of guns. They're focused on their task.
Next thing they brought up was, how is ship modularity coming along? This was a funny question to me, because I mean, we already knew from a tech position it was there. I mean, they've said this multiple times, but it was almost as if the question was posed as, why haven't we seen more? It's like, we got some initial modules, then what the hell happened to it? Which I get. That's a fair question.
That's how the question was asked, but they clearly wanted to talk about the Apollo, so they fixed it so they could go into the Apollo.
That's the funny thing, is that it really does kick off the conversation about the Apollo, which we're going to get to, which I guess we can sort of talk a little bit about that now, since we're talking about the Apollo. I'll go ahead and switch over. Obviously, some of the imagery has come out about the Apollo. I don't know what your initial reaction is, XQ, but I'll go ahead and give mine. I think a couple things.
Go for it.
I know a lot of people have said it looks bigger. I haven't done any measurements, but it does look like it's grown a lot.
66. So SC Leaks did the sticks measuring thing that you do, based on it's a large pad size, and they reckon it's around 66 meters, where the old one was like 41, 42.
So around Connie size. So it's grown to about Connie size, which would make sense to keep it in that class. I'll say this. it's
making a Phoenix variant look really potentially awesome all of a sudden.
Yeah, I tell you,
move the Phoenix over to this instead of the Coney. Yeah,
seriously. There's a couple things though. One, kudos to CIG ship team, and again, I think this is important when CIG sells, or at least when they used to sell concepts and then years later put the ship into production. Kudos to them for really sticking pretty damn close to the concept imagery. Like there are differences. It is not exact.
Yep.
There's some definite differences back here, but actually what they sort of did was make it a little sleeker and a little bit more interesting. But kudos for them sticking so close to the concept imagery. Now,
so
what's your reaction?
Two differences I can see. So I started instantly looking for differences, right? Because when these two came out, I thought they were the most two unnecessary variants. There's not enough distinction between the two, and I'm hoping when they come out there is.
I kind of still think that.
Okay. Looking at the two images, the only thing I can see that's different at all is on one you've got 8 missiles, which is this one, and if you flick back to the other one, you'll notice that they just cut half of them off.
Right, it's 4.
And they've done it in a really cheap. Yeah, it looks nasty.
And if you go to this one, there's the 8. Yeah, there's got more missiles.
Yeah, and it's meant to have extra armor, but where's the extra armor?
Yeah.
There's nothing else that changed now, unless it's on the underside, like the down and all that.
They both have the chin repeaters. There's 2 guns under the chin here. You can see that one there. That's on the medevac as well. Both have the turret.
So it was literally just one has more missiles and armor, and that's the medevac.
Yeah, and the triage is supposed to be a little faster because of that lack of armor. Here's my issue with this, and I put this on Twitter today because I think DePoets had made a post about like being concerned about how close these are. I agree with that sentiment in that there's not enough difference here. It to me, it leads to confusion for new players who may drop the $250 or whatever for these ships. I do think there needs to be some more substantial differences.
If you can eventually upgrade one into the other or vice versa, that's a positive player choice. If they are literally like hard coded variants in the game, then I have a problem. If they're just split for sales and it's a natural progression thing or allow you to customize, I have no problem. Right? But if it is literally, as I said, if it is literally hard coded, so you've got to buy both variants to get the best of each, that's insane.
This is very similar to me, and it's a different type of problem. But this is, I've brought this up a lot. It's my same issue with the Talon. I love the Talon, but it's like the one being gun heavy and the one being missile heavy. That's something you could have made as an armament module or a weapons kit that could be switched in and out. Again, I hope they do that moving forward with the idea of kits and stuff. It does seem like CIG wants to lean more into weapon customizations on ships, going beyond just the size point weapons. They're looking at that for Bespoke. We'll talk about that in a minute. But going back to this ship, I do hope there's some further differences. And maybe that is, I think in the original concept, the speed differences between the two were pretty minimal. I'm hoping maybe there's a greater speed difference. You know what I mean? Like something substantial, but then a greater armor difference.
Speed build up is a thing as well, so it might take longer for the medevac to get to full speed.
And not just speed, but all maneuverability on it. Yaw, pitch, everything.
Well, again, look at the Asgard versus the Valkyrie and stuff like that. So I can only imagine how sluggish the Paladin's going to be. So I'll be interested to see when we have that third one. But as you were saying with this, I want to know what the size increase is for. Was it literally just because they couldn't fit everything in? Cody Fox in chat just a little bit before was kind of echoing my own thoughts on this. Was I wonder if they actually saw sense and actually increased the cargo airlock area to actually hold a Nursa. That would be really cool for this ship to be a one-stop medical shop, because at the moment you essentially need to take this and a Connie to be able to pull that off.
That would be interesting. Let me ask you this, because I don't know if I don't know the answer to this. You may. Was the Apollo concepted back when we had the original Cutlass series before they got their revamp? Because if that's okay, because my original thinking was at its old size, it was a perfect jumping point from the Cutlass Red to the Apollo to the whatever. But with the new Cutlass size, the Cutlass Red was damn near the same size as the Apollo, a little bit shorter. But this seems like a nice stepping stone.
It was 2018.
Okay, well, so probably already had the Cutlass at that point. I don't know. So essentially, now your ladder for this would be C8R, Cutlass Red, Apollo. You get what I'm saying? Eventually, Galaxy, Medical, and stuff. So I feel like if it has grown to 60, 65 meters or something like that, that puts it in a good category. It's
19th of July 2018. I just found the exact date.
So, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. It's interesting. I didn't know if that was part of the reason, and maybe when the Apollo was originally concepted, it was just concepted to sort of fit in that size niche. But now with the Cutlass being Cutlass Red being what it is, maybe they felt like, oh, we could go a little bigger with this, fill a gap. I don't know.
I think they so originally it was the largest small ship you could get, because the next smallest ship under it was the Mole, and the Mole was the largest medium. So it was this somewhere between essentially what the Zeus and the Connie would be. It kind of sat in this weird middle ground between the two. Like they snuck it in to try. Like it wasn't in its own size class. It just they tried to do that because the Connie is a larger of the S4 sizes, so they wanted it probably to sit between those two. But now, as you said, it's more like a Connie.
Here's something I'm really interested to see, and it's this back end, and obviously we can't see that from this image, but this back end, I could totally see there being a ramp back there now. A ramp that drops and leads up. There wasn't originally in the concept, but I could totally see that being part of this ship now. And if that's the case, you're not wrong. There could be room for.
So from
it could be a way for cargo. It could be anything,
Yeah. So while you were zoomed in there, this is what we haven't actually quite worked it out. But if you zoom back in on that dock and the little thing at the back where you'd zoomed in, we believe that round dock is where the drone goes in, and the drone probably connects at that back middle section. See the back? It almost looks like the drone's there infused into the
almost yeah
that little thing. Yeah, that looks very similar to the Shepard drone.
It does look very similar to the Shepard drone.
Yeah, so we're assuming it kind of just connects there, comes out, grabs the person, and then if you see the dock itself, it almost looks like it's a round dock, but then a rectangle one within that, so it opens just to let the drone in.
Yeah, that's a good point. Armada says there was a ramp in the original concept images. Okay,
there was.
Okay, I must have missed that. Sorry. So, in a sense, if there was a ramp when this thing was concepted at like 40-something meters, then if this has grown to 65 meters, there could very well be enough room for an Ursa Medical back there.
Yeah.
I mean,
let me see if I can get you the there was an Apollo concept, and they had this like when they do the grey boxing, they had all the color.
Thank you, Roll Cub. Appreciate that.
This is what I was looking for. Hang on, just bear with me.
I will say I like on the medevac that it has like the amber glass in the front. That's pretty cool.
This is the one I was looking
By the
for.
way, I did see Tree say to Ben Curtis that medevac is actually spelled different in real life. It's MEDEVAC. So I would be curious if they change it.
I want to get really picky. I think they compromised the Medivac logo to make the Triage one look better. I actually think that they needed to use the I in Medivac for the cross.
Yeah.
Not just put it up in the top left, because again the Triage one looks really cool how the T's kind of integrated into the cross.
Let me
but again, it's just the logo at the end of the day. But
one second, I'll bring up that image you just sent.
Yep. I think it's worth showing because again it goes back to
you're right. Thank you, Armada and others, for mentioning that. Yep, it does have the ramp back here, main ramp entry. Again, previously, this was probably just a decent little space when this ship was originally concepted at whatever size it was. But again, if it's grown that much, this could be a substantially bigger area back here now.
So you can see very quickly if you widen the ramp, essentially merge the airlock and the cargo bays, you could put an Ursa there. And then the Ursa just goes out and becomes an airlock. But I don't think they're going to give it that, because I think then it probably gains too much. But it's something I would have liked to see, like a one-stop shop for medical. And then imagine how the Apollo would then dovetail with the Galaxy and the Endeavour.
Yeah,
it would have been amazing.
Yeah,
you could have done it all. And if they don't do it, I wouldn't be surprised if we then get a bigger ship that can kind of do that, because I think we kind of need it now with what the Galaxy. I guess that probably would be the Galaxy.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to risk the stream crashing, but maybe towards the end of this stream, I can pop open Cinema. We'll scale the Apollo up to 65 meters, and we'll see what a NERSA looks like sitting there.
Well, because the other thing is you can say right now is we know the rooms have gone straight. They're not on this diagonal slant anymore, just like the ones in the Polaris went straight. Because you can see in the pictures they've gone straight. So that could also be what's increased the size. If you essentially put everything back straight, it does make it go longer. So I think that's probably where most of it has come from.
Yeah.
But I'd hope that it's probably because the other thing is, do you have if you open it in Hangerlink, you could probably put. I think the main difference between this and the Connie is going to be the height, because Connies are essentially like a layer, and then they've got a layer below where the cargo lifts come down. I think that'll be the differentiator, is really the height.
Yeah, you may be right. I think, like for example, if this will be a little hit or miss here, everyone, but bear with me. So if we'll go into, we're going to add 2 ships. We're going to add a Constellation.
Taking note, the Apollo is the concept Apollo, so grain of salt and all that.
We're just going to add that for a Connie for measuring purposes, and we'll throw the medevac in here. Again, its original concepted size is 43 meters. Just going to put that out there, and then we'll bring Ursa,
which by the way was 1 meter over the max for medium.
Right,
but that's why it was the smallest.
So I want to do something here. I'm going to hide the ship labels real quick. But like if you have this, let's say you scale this Apollo up to be, roughly the size of this Connie, which is 61 meters. Let's say the Apollo is roughly the same, 61 meters, somewhere around that.
66 is what ST Leaks was saying, by the way.
Right. Yeah. 66. Yeah, I can't do it exact. I'm kind of back of the napkin here, but let's say something like this. It's pretty thick. I mean, if you take a NERSA, that's what a NERSA looks like next to it. I'll zoom in. I mean, it could be something.
Maybe
like that.
Maybe it just got fatter, but not hot. Because again, you're scaling on all 3 axes.
I'm scaling all 3 axes.
Just width and length. Yeah.
Yeah, it very well could be. And here's the thing, if this has scaled up to 66 meters, 60 meters, 65, whatever the case may be, that's a pretty substantial growth. I mean, that's, John Cruz joked before that ships grow like 20, 25%, but that's a pretty substantial growth. That's like a 40% growth in size. You know what I mean?
The modular, man, there's grounds for speculation there with Algrid now, to go back and talk to Algrid with the luxury stuff, because again, with those modular rooms, how would that work with the Phoenix? Do you put extra bedrooms in? Do you decide to put in the piano and the spa bath instead? Stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's becomes very, very interesting, because then you can customize what your Phoenix would be. I wonder if that's where they're going. It is just because the Phoenix has problems. The Phoenix has some massive problems. They overpromised and they just cannot deliver, because they cannot physically fit it all in that ship. But again, if it took an Ursa in the back, like the NERSA, that means you could also put the links in the back. You see where I'm going with this? It makes sense to turn it into an Apollo. So it'd be the Phoenix Apollo instead of the Connie Apollo. I think it does. Be really interesting.
It does. And even if you, for some reason, wanted to keep them both medical, one of the things I was thinking about the Apollo is, if you were to redo it, and let's say you were going to have 2 medical variants, I'd almost prefer one that's more like civilian medical focus, and one that's like military medical. You know what I mean? Like CSAR.
Well, that's what I think.
And then you could really lean into those differences. You could really lean into the weapon differences, the armor plating, and all that. These sort of look like the same ships with different paint job. You know what I mean? That even one has more armor, it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, I think this is the one that. When they put the more armor on this, I really want to see it be an actual thing. And like back in the day when we had the little hexagons that appeared on, like you could physically shoot off. So maybe in the future, when they come back and do armor as a physicalized thing, we'll actually kind of see that, and it'll look. You actually apply the armor to the outside.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I would love to see, because I have friends that play the game that are big into like the military CSAR stuff, and they would love this ship, but just slightly more military look. Like maybe the front canopy has a little bit more like armor plating on the sides, where, you know what I mean? It's a little bit more, maybe it's got one size up weapon turret, stuff like that, and it's slower and all that. But then maybe the civilian version has other benefits. Maybe it can fit an extra bed or something, who knows, to balance it. But I don't know.
just realized where the drone is too. If you kind of had that module as well, you take off the drone and you put on the point defense for the Phoenix. It actually works.
Yep.
I can't see a point like the only thing I guess you lose is the Merlin. But right. That means you'd need to so you'd have to find somewhere for the Archimedes to attach, and I think that's what kills the idea, to be honest with you.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, the Apollo in let's project here the Star Citizen 1.0. Okay, let's go into the future here.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, the Apollo should be the primary medical ship. At least the ships we currently know about. Yes, there's the Galaxy, there's the Endeavor Hope, all that, Cutlass Red. But when you take all those and some of those edge case, big, massive ships, the Apollo should be the ship people are doing the meat and potatoes medical gameplay, in the verse.
It's the best all-rounder, so to speak.
Best all-rounder, yeah. Do you...
I'm just real quick.
Yeah.
Kickstarter Radio says, aren't these images of the 46? No, these are the new ones of the...
Yeah, these are the new... This is the actual game model, which I imagine won't be... I don't know how fast 4.23, whatever the next patch is coming, but, we expect to get a behind the ships on this. Again... I've been pretty vocal in not loving the behind the ships series. I like them, but I wish they were about 3 times longer. And I would love to not only hear the people that have worked on the ship. That's really great to see and hear from the people that actually built the ship. But I do kind of miss getting John Crew and Ben Curtis's viewpoints on the ships from that higher level, where they're the ones that sort of
need a spectrum of people, don't they?
Yeah. Again, I love hearing from
really, They like to do they like to give everyone time in the sun,
and I think that's awesome. I think kudos to CIG for doing that. I've seen pretty much in every behind the ships episode a new ship team member. I do think that's really great. But much like it's good to sort of hear from Chris every now and then when talking about the direction of this game, or Richard Tyrer or whatever. When it comes to ships, I still kind of sometimes want to hear from Crew and Curtis. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is. Or even like other people like, oh God, I forgot his name, dude with the big beard. Some of those more senior ship team members, it is good to sort of hear from them sometimes, their viewpoints on where these ships sit.
They've just been there for longer and they've got a bit more knowledge base, so they can go a little bit deeper for us hardcore people. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm saying that from a picky standpoint, I think those guys are probably incredibly busy right now, especially with how the ship teams have grown and the amount of ships moving through them. But yeah, you do kind of miss that little bit of context they can provide. What do you think? I think this was amazing. One of the best decisions CIG's made, and they've made a couple of really great decisions, with things over the past year. But what do you think about the idea of just giving everyone all the modules with the ship?
I think that's kind of was already factored into the price.
Yeah. Mark Gibson. Thank you, Zor. Thank you, Mark Gibson. Yeah.
Yeah, if you kind of look at it as it's about the same price as the Andromeda, but it was actually smaller, and now it's about the same size.
Yeah.
And I think the modules were a part of it, much like the Retaliator dropped down to $150, but they were, the bomb modules and stuff like that, and they've moved away from that. They've just gone, we'll just include them in the price, and I think that's what's happened going forward. Like any ships that have modularity, unless they're sold separately, like the Galaxy, they seem to toss and change depending on how things cost.
Well, that's sort of what I'm leading to. Do you see there being any kind of weirdness in the future? Well, let's use the Retaliator as an example. Do you see there being any kind of weirdness where Retaliator owners are like, well, why am I not getting my modules for free?
Well, because the other thing is you'll eventually be able to get them in game anyway.
Well,
so it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and again, at the end of the day, it's just beds. It's not like on their side of it, it is a physical whole swap over. But realistically, a bed is a bed, and it's not
a role change.
It's not like going from cargo to bombs in the Retaliator. Like it's not that big of a change. It's medical to medical. It's just a different level. So
that's a good point.
It doesn't quite feel the same.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah. I think what the modules are really just doing for you here, it's almost like they're called modules, but they're really just sort of interior layout changes to the same gameplay role.
So before we move on, probably want to bring up the paints that because Alt Killer, I think was mentioned in chat.
Did you
He
send
asked
them
if
to
we'd
me?
seen them. No, but I can.
If you could send them to me, that'd be good. I did see them on X, but I did not bring them over for the show.
There you go. Well, that's it. That's it on Reddit.
Okay,
that's
perfect.
The Reddit
Perfect.
post.
Let me bring this up, everyone, and I will bring them over here so we can see. Let me make them big.
So this is someone that's just essentially overlaid other skins from other medical variants across the top of the Apollo. So these are not official. These are just like, wouldn't it be cool?
Yeah, did a good job, by the way. This one looks good.
Yeah, that's the Terrapin from Cyberpunk. That's the Cyberpunk looking skin. That makes it look
that's
like
cool.
one from that.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. That's
simple.
cool.
But I'm surprised he didn't do the Swedish blue one. You know, the concierge blue Pisces swing. Yeah, that's the one I think would look kind of cool too.
I like that a lot. That's cool.
That's a little bit like the yellow, because there's a yellow Terrapin one as well. He's used a UK ambulance, I believe, but I would have used the Terrapin one.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's that one, I think he was on crack when he did this one.
I don't get it. I don't love it. It's an interesting color combo.
More like a search and rescue.
Yeah,
search and rescue.
Yeah. I like that one. That one's cool.
That's the one I was actually thinking of. Sorry, I actually forgot about that one. Yeah, this is the one I was thinking of.
I dig that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I
than the other blue one.
I would think. Oh, that's pretty interesting. I would think
too much stripes. He needs to.
It's busy.
Cut out that.
It's busy.
Yeah, it needs to remove that center.
Yeah, I think we're going to see paints like this. I think they're going to lean into the role of the ship for sure. And they've been pretty good at that.
The Nursa ones.
Yeah.
You reckon because of the Nursa and RSI?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Obviously, this one leaning into the Galaxy's protector paint, which was the concierge paint for the Galaxy. I kind of like that. That's cool. I dig that.
And I think he's done the right thing at looking at other things like the Pisces and the Galaxy and stuff like that for other ships that have medical skins. That at least kind of shows their thought on their reference pieces essentially. Like they looked at different like a Swiss ambulance or UK ambulance, and being in the UK, I think that's going to be a really big influence for them.
Someone asked in chat, sorry I missed the name, does the Apollo have wee-woo lights? It probably does. I would imagine it does.
I would be very surprised if it does not.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some great options here. Bag here, thank you for the follow. Sending the Javelin over. Appreciate that. Yeah, there's some nice ones here. I mean, I think these some nice paint approaches here. I think any of these would be cool. I think we're going to see stuff like that. I mean, I can guarantee you there's going to be a whole host of paints for the Apollo 2-ship series. There's probably going to be, if I had to guess, there'll be a concierge paint as well. You can probably count on that.
Might even be, depends how busy they go. They might even have two, one for each variant.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see. But I'm expecting at least one concierge.
Yeah, which maybe with the decal work, there would have to be a little bit of that. Okay, brother, thank you. Appreciate you.
Like the Solstice for the Zeus. That's kind of what I'm envisioning. Something similar to that. You know, the black and gold kind of concierge thing. That's where I'd be expecting it to go.
Yeah. Max Skinny says, Graham, going to have to add the Apollo to the new videos now. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Cool. RSI Apollo. Very cool. I'm excited for it. Like I said, I do own one. I don't think... Here's the tricky thing for me, too, with the Apollo. With medical gameplay in its current state, I'm not interested in it. I'll let other people do it. I'm interested in a possible future. I have an Endeavor and I have a Master Kit and
so you're more likely to get one of these as a loaner. Because I currently have a Cutlass Red and something else as my loaner.
Oh, okay.
There's no way in heaven they don't upgrade it to this.
Gotcha.
It just makes so much sense.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I'd be really surprised if that's.
Or I wonder if you own a Galaxy, if you with the medical module, I wonder if you could get this as a loaner. That'd be interesting.
They do like to change them around because people are sitting there waiting.
Keeps them fresh.
I think they're very generous with the loaner matrix.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I'm excited for this ship.
Same thing with the Krakens and the Ironclad.
Yeah.
Currently, we get a Caterpillar. I'd be really surprised if we don't get an Ironclad.
Yeah. It looks like they've done a bang-up job on it. Obviously, the Apollos are going to be our ships for I guess it'd be September, right? Next patch is coming in September. This isn't the
Yep.
October set of ships,
I'd
right?
expect it's probably only so what is it, 28th for you? So it's probably about 12 days away. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I have to go back and check, but I think we got the Wolf on the 11th for me, which would be the 10th for you.
Yeah.
And I think the reasoning for that, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is they slowly moved it from being about the 20th of the month to the 10th because where CitizenCon's going to fall.
Yeah.
So they're going so there's a gap there, and then obviously you've almost got a bit of a gap till you get to the 20th again on for IAE.
Jaybird says, which Apollo do I have? I have the medevac variant is the one I think I currently have.
One thing I've always found about them being so similar is I cannot justify the $25 difference between the two.
Yeah.
And the only real thing, it has to be that armor. And again, you can't physically see the armor on either of them.
Yeah.
So I have to assume it's something that's kind of going to be a lot more at a later date.
Yeah, and hey, Ball Bounces, hope you're well. I guess I was hoping. The only thing I'm disappointed at, and I should preface that, I'm not disappointed in the way these ships look. I really think CIG killed it. I mean, it looks awesome. It really does. CIG's been doing amazing work on RSI exteriors lately, from the Zeus to the Polaris to the Perseus. I mean, just killer. The only thing I guess I would say, just kind of linking to your armor comment there, it would have been nice to maybe just have a little bit of like some exterior greeble differences between the two, even if it was just a minor thing, you know.
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
But they look
identical. It's a tech thing, because remember the Ares to the Ion, and it had all those hexagons on it. When you actually apply a skin to the Ares, it looks just like the Ion. So I actually firmly believe in the future, when armor comes along, it may just be, it won't be a physical pieces that fall off. It'll just be a texture that kind of disappears as you shoot it. I think that's what they've gone with. And so you'll probably get this hexagon thing that you apply that goes wherever the armor goes on the ship. But then if it gets shot, you can then hit it again and actually cause damage.
Max Skinny says, Grim, does the medevac have more storage? I don't know. There may be some differences like that. There may be. There wasn't in the original concept.
We can bring that up in the wiki and have a quick look. It won't take too long to do so.
I don't believe I remember any of that in the original one, or in the original concept information, but I could be wrong.
Yep. Do you want me to link it to you and we'll just do it on your screen?
Sure.
So this is the medevac, but if you scroll down, you'll find the triage, and you can obviously just toss between the two.
Yeah, let me bring it up here. It's loading here.
Yeah, it's not loading for me. So
we broke the wiki. SC Tools, we broke it.
It could be down for maintenance.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, okay.
Well, for the sake of time, we probably got to move on anyway. But I mean, we're going to find out. I mean, I think what we're all hoping is that there's some substantial differences to the ships that make them more interesting.
So I've actually got this that's got a comparison table. So I'll send you this through. Sure. They are exactly the same in every freaking way.
Okay.
Same length, same width, same roll. Same SCU. Like it's kind of a bit of a joke. Yep. And as you can see, the only thing that changes there is literally the missiles.
Yeah. Now, what we could see, we won't know this yet until some of the data mining starts on the ship or CIG puts out the information. Because this is old information, we could see some changes to components. We could see some other changes interior. Maybe there's additional storage space or whatever between the two. We don't know.
Well, it could be wrong there, but I'm reading this as there is no missiles on the triage variant, but we actually now have 4 missiles and 8 missiles. So they've actually got additional missiles on the medevac, and then added so essentially they've added 4 to both of them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, both ships are listed in their previous thing of having 28 SCU cargo. I imagine that has grown to some degree if the ship is grown in size to that degree. But let's get
this as well. So it's going to be a bit of a hard to drive.
Yeah,
because they're all fixed. Same as the Wolf. The Wolf doesn't steer the best because it's all fixed.
Yeah.
So why that's a problem is if you take out a thruster, right, when they are gimbaled, they can compensate for the loss of the other thruster, but when they're all fixed, they can't compensate, so it just goes all chaotic. Yeah.
Continuing along, the next one I want to talk about is
hang on. Someone's trying to quote me in chat. 8 missiles on one, and the other have 16. Well, technically
4 on one side, 4 on the other side.
You are correct. Yeah, I'm talking about like the actual port, but yes, you are correct.
Next thing that was talked about was they said, can you tell us anything about the command module? Now, obviously, John Crew essentially said that the feature team is working on that feature, which is essentially the back end work to make that possible, because it is a different type of ship-to-ship docking, essentially, because there has to be a transfer of control authority from one ship to another. And remember, that transfer of control authority plugs into a lot of things, maneuvering thrusters, main engine thrusters, all that kind of stuff. So, and then I imagine that gets... Say again?
You'd understand this from doing 3D modeling. It's kind of like a parent-child hierarchy.
Yeah. And I'm sure that gets even doubly complicated with engineering and the whole way engineering and relays and stuff are stuff. So now when your command module connects, it's plugging into the resource network of the other ship. So you know what I mean? So there's a pretty complicated thing there. But now that we've gotten more and more information, this is something you've been saying, execute, I've been saying it. It really, really hammers home that I think the soonest we would get the Ironclad is Invictus or Drake Defense Con next May.
Yeah. Agreed.
It's you got to remember too, it is a big ship. It's Carrack sized. It's a big ship. And it does have 2 variants. It sounds like both variants are being targeted for release at the same time. The only thing I got to say about this, no surprises there, other than I think it kind of guarantees the Ironclad some point next year. But the only thing I would say is that one exciting thing about the command module tech as a feature that's being worked on by the feature team is I'm kind of excited to see if it opens up other ships that use command module tech from other manufacturers. That could be kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, again, they like to use tools that they've made. So
which we know,
the
Endeavor has some level of that, obviously, with its, but the Endeavor will undoubtedly go through a reconcepting. Now, I think they'll try to keep that feature of the Endeavor, but it'll be interesting to see what other kind of like ships, it'd be interesting to see if there's a smaller ship that could have some sort of detaching thing, a ship in that 30 to 40 meter range that has that sort of tech in it. That'd be really cool.
I instantly think of Obi-Wan Kenobi's ship from the first couple of episodes, the one where he drives in with a ring and then he detaches the ring and then it becomes a fighter. So it'd be really cool to see some kind of old school, maybe from Jace Aerospace, who is the original Anvil, something like that, where it's an older design, and so for it to jump, it's got to attach to the ring, but then it's got to leave its ring behind to go do its mission and then come back to the ring. That could be really interesting gameplay.
Imagine something like this. Imagine something that is a small fighter, like medium fighter size or light fighter, something small that has a ring like that with extra engines and fuel on it that you connect to, and then you can travel across an entire system in a light fighter and then disconnect, fly, so that you're not running out of gas. Something like that would be really, really cool.
Just takes the signature of your ship down. You've got less fuel. You've got less engines. So essentially, you could take an arrow, and then all of a sudden, it makes it the size of an F8. So it gets all the features of F8. Maybe even the guns, but then it flies like an F8. So essentially, it's a way you can transition from a heavy fighter to a light fighter.
And when you disconnect, and when you disconnect from it, you lose some of those benefits, like that fuel capacity, those engines. You go down to what is just on the arrow. I think something like that could be cool.
Components will stay behind with that part of the ship.
Imagine what that could do for even just ships like bounty hunting ships and other things. It just could really kind of alter the landscape in interesting ways, I think, and I think a lot of people would. I tell you what, Kruger would be an interesting manufacturer for that.
My brain went a really interesting place. Just now, I was thinking of the the moon landings.
Yep.
And you know how you used to have it so one person stayed behind in the moon lander and the other two went down?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of like a scout ship where the guy stays behind and is like the outlook. So he's got some kind of turret, right? And he can shoot in all directions. So it's like a turret on the top of it, turret on the bottom. But he's also scanning, trying to see if anyone's coming. So it's almost like the watchtower. And then when they get detected, they get back in the ship and like get out of here, they're coming. You know, like that could be a really interesting concept to hurry to get back to the guy. Then just that extra layer of we've got to get him. Sure. Or do we just leave him?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, that's really cool. I could also see, I mean, I know they won't do this because the whole series is kind of the same, just duplicated, but it would be interesting if, like, when you get to the bigger hull series, like the D and the E, if the front sections of those could disconnect. They have smaller engines on them. Maybe they can't, you know, jump through jump gates or whatever, but you can leave everything in orbit if you had to, like an emergency surface landing, you know what I mean? But you have all this cargo. Just stuff like that I think would be really interesting for CIG to explore once they get this tech.
Yeah, I think, as you said, the only other one that I can think of is the Endeavour where the front cab detaches, but there's precedence for another manufacturer being missed, so I do hope we see this used again.
Yeah. Move 235 says Mega Fury upgrade ring win, Grim. Yeah, the Fury. Yeah, you can plug in. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
That would be a good one. That would be a really good one.
That would be a good one. So again, the interesting thing about the command module to me isn't any big surprises. It's what could come from it.
You know the ship in Star Wars, where they have the two pilots in the red thing and they follow them into the Sky City?
Yep.
That ship, but then they can disconnect.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. It'd be interesting. Or it's you get
Furies.
Yeah.
So you could have the two Furies, one on each side.
Yeah. That'd be interesting. Think of it, it's like Banu Defender, where you got pilots sort of sitting parallel next to each other, but the ship could separate. And it'd be really interesting. That'd be cool.
Or even like some kind of platform ship where there's a Fury in each corner, and if they decide to they could just detach and go after the person.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
All right, let's go on to the next one. This is an interesting one we'll talk about. And by the way, everyone, there is some of these that we're just going to skip because to me they don't make any sense. Like the question that was asked, backlog ships plan. Well, they're knocking off backlog ships. I don't understand why this question was asked. CIG is in my opinion, pretty aggressively tackling backlog ships. But anyways, we're going to skip
all the real
those.
Big ones now, pretty much, isn't it? Just all the real big ones.
Yeah. But let's go to a question I do think is interesting, which is what brought on this recent design trend of emphasizing bespoke weaponry on your newest ships.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of talked about that in that, well, there isn't really a focus on it. It's just worked out that we've had two ships that have bespoke weaponry, and that there's two more coming this year, the Perseus and then this mystery other ship that comes with a bespoke weapon. I think the more interesting discussion, though, with the bespoke weaponry is they very, very clearly, giant winks in the video, hint that we are going to have options for our bespoke weapon ships. So I think what you're going to see is, and I have no doubt the Kruger is going to get a couple options, or at least one option. It's got the size 4 bespoke Gatlings. I think there's going to be a size 4 bespoke energy weapon or beam weapon or something.
They've got the size 3s on the Raven, and they're made by Kruger, but they're called Quarrelers. So I'd expect to see 2 size 4 Quarrelers for the Wolf. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
and Avra's the one that came up with that, not me. But
I've talked at length that, you know, I think we're going to get a third bespoke or a third variant of the Ares. You know, I know you've all heard me talk at length about that, some sort of beam weapon variant. But even more interesting than that, it would be interesting to see the Ares weapons themselves become switchable. So if you do have an Ion, you could switch it to an Inferno. One interesting thing that also makes me think that is if you go to the Crusader showroom, the Ares Starfighter is literally just presented as the Starfighter, and it doesn't have a weapon on it. It just has the empty area there, almost as if they're trying to advertise it as a platform that can host a variety of weapons. So just kind of interesting.
Again, this goes back to what I've said before. I have a feeling that a lot of ships that are sold as variants eventually will just be progression. I don't think they actually will be variants because, again, like I said, you can take a skin and put it on the Inferno and it looks just like the Ion. So it really shows that that armor is just a skin, and it also, like you said, it's literally for them. It's just swapping the gun over. And it's not making any difference to them because if you buy the gun in game, you have to apply it at the shipyard. So it's once you go out that door, it's not like you've it just doesn't hurt them from a gameplay perspective at all to allow you, because again, you've got either to put the armor on or not put the armor on, right? So that's entirely up to you. It's a player customization thing, and it's the same thing as we just kind of applied with the Apollo. If they allow you to do that, it makes a lot more sense because it's just not justified right now. I just like they're the two closest variants I've ever seen, and I mean they're closer than the Ares, the two Ares variants.
Yeah.
They just don't make sense.
You know, Kickstarter, you bring up a great point, and this is something I thought about. Kickstarter brings up the Ares has a bigger power plant for the weapon and better shield. So if the Inferno got the Ion weapon, it wouldn't have the power to power it. That is true.
Yep. But you just have an empty component there that you either need or don't need, and then that affects your flight characteristics. So obviously, one's going to fly faster than the other. Again, player choice.
Yeah, there's ways CIGs could get around those internals. Like maybe the space for the component's still there. I don't know, but we'll see.
We've seen them do it in the Saber. So in the Saber, before they released it, I think they knocked back one of the shields. So they went from, and I could be thinking of the wrong components, so don't hold me to the flame here on this one. But essentially, you'd look in the space, and there was room for 3, but they only had 2 there.
Right, and I do think too, but it is a good point. It's a good point, Kickstarter. It's something I have been thinking about, but they really do seem to emphasize in the Q&A that we're going to have some choice there on these bespoke weapon ships. Now, I am excited about this. Now, let's talk about the other big bespoke ship, which is the Perseus. I know so the Perseus really, sort of its original selling point was that it was going to have the dual size 7 ballistic cannons, I think maybe. But regardless, there was going to be a variety of munition types that the Perseus serviced. I still would not be surprised, even though it's never been talked about. I still would not be surprised. I know they have bumped that up, by the way, to a size 8, supposedly a size 8 Medusa cannon. I still would not be surprised if there is a kit or a bespoke weapon changeout kit that switches them to size 8 energy cannons. I don't know. I think CIG, I mean, I never expected the Idris to get a torpedo kit. So honestly, they couldn't shock me at this point.
I think you'd have to have a compromise there, though. So maybe it has less shields because of it. Because if you think about it, you're going from ballistics that are essentially a manual weapon, or a lot less power draw, to a very power hungry weapon. So how do you rebalance that, right? And so therefore you got to take something away.
Yeah.
And again, you're going for something that has limited ammo to essentially an ammo that just recharges constantly.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally get it. So it's just something to keep in mind. I think it would not shock me if we see something like that. So yeah. Anything else on the bespoke weapon thing, Execute, before we move on?
It just allows them to make variants outside that little category. So again, the Meteor is a really good example. It goes to the 2 extremes. You get absolutely light fighter shields, but then you get heavy fighter mechanics all in a medium fighter. It allows them to essentially pull those outside its little category, and that's what they've done. And I see why they've done it, but again, the only way out of that I don't like, because it really pigeonholes a lot of ships, is at least they kind of like what they did with the nose guns on the Vanguard is the example I keep going back to. They've got to offer at least a few bespoke guns for that, so it's got enough variety. Because again, you look at the Wolf at the moment, there's no variety at all. You know exactly what it's going to do as soon as it turns up. There's no extra missiles. It's just a Wolf, and it's going to do exactly that. But as soon as you put the energy guns on it, does it have energy guns or does it have the ballistics? And I now have to change my. I don't know what I'm walking into, and that makes it more interesting.
Yeah. Real quick, man, the internet in general is not being kind to me tonight. One thing, since we're sort of talking about guns, I did want to switch over here. We got some new, I guess these are new redesigned bearing weapons. I don't know much about what we're looking at here, but
so you know the They're usually like M number A.
Yeah.
So M4A, M5, 6, 7, 8,
Yeah.
that's those. So it's a
Okay.
big drastic change. But
Yeah.
they're the most, we talked earlier about the Aurora being the standard.
Mm-hmm.
They were the standard gun in the game.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
changing them to look, this is a massive change.
Yeah. Which is interesting. Makes you wonder what prompted this design change.
Just an update. I think they've updated a few bearing weapons in the past, like they some of the guns that have been around for longer. They just updated them.
They look pretty brutal. Like they really feel like really beefed up and aggressive. Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, you'll notice like traditionally, if you kind of look back at a lot of the older designs, they really just got bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
This, like looking at the top one and the middle one, you can see that they are now differentiated. It's a lot easier to actually tell what the guns are just from looking at them.
There's design changes there, not just scale.
You know, some people go, "Oh, is that a size 2 or is that a size 3?" It's hard to tell. Now there's going to be no argument.
Right.
You're just going to know by looking.
Yeah. Right. Okay, everyone, let me push it along here because, again, time is a ticking. We got still a good amount to cover. Okay, so the next one, we won't spend much time on it. They just talked about the shield size rebalancing thing, essentially talking about ships that carry more than 2 shields will essentially just have redundant shields after that. You can only use 2 shields at a time. When one of those goes down, then the whatever your redundant one instantly comes on. So it's going to be more about sustainability versus extra shielding. So
it was good to see how that works because there's things like the Redeemer that have 6 of them and it never ever made sense, and now all of a sudden it makes a lot more sense. You're just going to have this huge shield pool.
It just means it's going to take that much longer to take those shields down. So it's nice clarity. It's nice clarity.
And can you actually put extra power into the ones that aren't being worked to get them to recharge while the others are coming down? So you're essentially cycling. So really interesting to see how that all pans out. But it makes so much more sense now.
Yeah. Next thing, are there any plans for a medium to large class salvage ship? This is one of those questions. It's always interesting to hear what CIG is going to say. The answer is always yes, because they want to fill those gaps. They're not going to leave a gap. The only reason
talk about the grid, don't they? They talk about how they had the grid, and they basically want to get a ship in every size of every category. So
exactly.
The first one I think was mining, so you can see the 4 different ships in mining. So they'll go back and do salvage.
And we've seen it with they've showed us, they peeled back the curtain on how that's going to work with base building. They revealed all this, the size steps for that. The only interesting thing with this one was that Ben Curtis threw that hint in there about an orange salvage ship. If you've been watching Info Runners and stuff, you'll know that there's been some. Obviously, it could be Argo for sure. That is the orange manufacturer. It could also be a red herring, and maybe it's Consolidated Outland. Maybe it's something that's got maybe it's a ship that's got the tiniest orange stripe on it. For all we know, you really don't know. I mean, CIG could be having fun with this.
I think. Well, I think the likely candidate is Argo. Wouldn't he have just said Argo? That's the other way I go. So I'd say it's going to be Argo or Consolidated Island. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I would suspect, based off the sizes of ships we have now, I would suspect the ship probably falls in like that. I don't know what you think, XQ, but I would think it falls in that sort of 60-meter range, most likely 60 to 70-meter range.
Similar to the Apollo and Connie, basically. It's essentially adjacent to those two. It's again, it's below the Reclaimer and above the Vulture, which puts it in that S4 size category.
Yeah,
essentially what
the Reclaimer is really the interesting one, though, in size, because it's I consider it a capital ship personally. It's weird though, because it does straddle the line between really big ass large ship and capital. It's one of those ones that kind of sits weirdly in there. Another ship like that's like the Odyssey and stuff, where it just kind of sits nestled in that kind of size bracket. Again, when the Reclaimer does get its new pass, though, I personally think it's going to get all capital components. I think it's going to be the capital salvage ship, especially if they plan on doing the rework on it.
They've already upgraded.
Oh, have they? Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Trouble opening Hangalink at the moment. I wanted to open Hangalink. I wanted to.
There's lots of websites that are giving me problems.
Yeah, I can't get into Fleet View at all. It's
It's working for
what I was
me.
going to do is I was going to say, like, there is quite a bit of size range in there. Again, going from the Apollo up to the Ironclad does technically fall in that S4 size category. So there is a big difference in size. You're essentially talking 60 to 120 meters for a large ship. So the salvage could be anywhere in there.
It could be.
And I'm going to be quite honest, if they really wanted to, there is room for 2 there.
I still, again, when you from a mining perspective, you can look at ships like the Mole. We still need the salvage equivalent of that, and we still need the salvage equivalent of I don't know. Would you think the Reclaimer and the Arastra are kind of parallel there?
Reclaimer Orion. It's Reclaimer Orion.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we are talking about is essentially a Mole Arastra level salvage is what we're talking about. And that's why I say there's possibly room for 2, because the Vulture
probably room for 2
is technically a medium ship, right?
Yeah.
But it's only by 2 meters. So I think it's like 31 to 33, something like that. It just crosses that line.
And
so again, you could quite easily see you could get a ship at 60 meters and then one at maybe 90 meters.
And still missing a ground salvage vehicle. Another thing we're missing. So
again, with base building coming along, I honestly, that's what I thought the misfortune was. It was designed to essentially land, and it had a tractor beam on it, so it made a lot of sense. Pick up the piece with the tractor beam and then salvage the building. But again, with where it came out, we know things have been delayed before. They had a prototype of salvage working. So again, maybe the fortune gets a renaissance when base building comes around. We'll have to wait and see.
I'm going to cherry pick again for the sake of time some of these questions because I know we're talking about them, which is great. So I might skip here. The next one I do want to go to, though, is the railing cargo pod system, valid or needs rethinking. Ben Curtis obviously said a little bit of both, which makes sense. The funny thing is I do see a lot of discussion about this online about those triangular shaped pods.
It's pretty simple. Just take the triangles instead of putting hexagons in them. You just put squares in them.
Yeah, I've personally never been concerned because there's a ton of ways they could do this. For one, here's an obvious one. Right now, the triangles are the pods. They could also just make them flatter and make them triangular shaped grav plating, and then you're just attaching whatever there. So it still has the triangular design language back there, but it can take anybody. There's a ton of ways they can adjust for this.
Literally just making boxes too, 4 boxes that are connected together. They're they can do whatever they want.
What is more interesting though is that they said that the SCU capacity of this ship has gone way out. Currently, it's spec'd to have 320 SCU of cargo. I agree with you, Execute. I think going way up probably means close to doubling in SCU capacity, which would put it around, am I wrong here in saying Hercules SCU size?
Yeah. Well, would say 320, so that'd be what, 640, and I believe the M2 is like 670, 680. The Caterpillar is larger than the C2, and that's 576. So yeah, you're in that ballpark.
So that puts you there. The next jump from there would put you in the Ironclad territory, which is about 1500 SCU. So I think that's going to excite a lot of people. The railing bumping up in cargo capacity right there. It's already kind of a good deal from pricing standpoint, especially with it being an alien ship. And if it's carrying that much more SCU capacity, while I never like to tell people, hey, buy your ship for real money, I would say if the railing is a ship you're interested in and it's in buyback, you will probably want to grab it for that concept price.
I think we'll see an increase at AIE. I'll be really surprised if it doesn't bump. Yeah.
I do too, but really exciting ship. Again, we won't spend too much time on it here, just other than to say that it's nice to see it getting a bump up. And here's the thing: that's been a little bit of par for course with a lot of ships. You've seen CIG kind of go back and refactor some SCU and storage grids and stuff, and some of those ships are getting bump ups in their capacity. But anyway, let's continue on. We talked about the railing. They did ask, will we see more Kruger ships? This is one of those obvious questions. Duh. We're going to see more Kruger ships. The only thing I thought
was question to ask.
Yeah.
The question should have been, are we going to see more ships Kruger ships before the release of the game or after the release of the game? That's the question I want to ask.
Yeah, I think I think ultimately it's going to come down to how well the Kruger Wolf sold. And I think it sold pretty well. The reason I say that is, excuse me, if the Sulin, for example, had sold really well, I think we would have seen something else from Gatak, whatever, come down the line.
You can make it, make it really simple. Like, people have different tastes, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, luxury has always been Origin. You've just literally gone, here's another version of luxury, and that probably applies to all these people that liked luxury. They just didn't like the look of Origin,
right?
And it goes the other way as well. Like, there was probably heaps of people that liked Origin, but they don't like Kruger. So you need different tastes.
I have no doubt we're going to get Kruger ships, and as XQ just talked about a lot on the Info Runner show, there's some really interesting gameplay loops that Kruger could tie into that we kind of need another high-end manufacturer for. The funny thing about Kruger to me is the manufacturer they most kind of parallel is Mirai, but just in a slightly different way.
Yes,
to me.
I would say that is the closest. That they're somewhere between Mirai and Origin. Absolutely,
they're both high tech, but where Mirai sort of leans more on like high tech thruster technology and all that kind of stuff, I feel like Kruger is obviously and where Kruger is leaning more high tech in terms of like weapon applications and stuff like that. Like, it's more centered there, but it's still supposed to be like advanced military stuff. Although I'm not sure, I'm not a lore.
I would definitely say Kruger leans more to the military.
I'm not a lore person, but I don't think the Fury and the Guardian are like UEE military contracted ships or anything. I think they're just.
I'd have to go back and actually have a look. That'd be something to ask Paul and Alfred.
I'm not sure if there's a lot of Mirai lore out there, but the next thing I wanted to talk about, and this is just because I've covered this quite a bit, is they did ask about the Carrack cargo pods. They just reaffirmed that the cargo pods, as you see them now, where they only open halfway, is its intent. I can play this little animation here. The cargo pods, for those that don't know, are actually supposed to drop completely out of the ship, and they will then fully open. Those cargo pods can be modular for all intents and purposes. I threw the ballista in here just to really show you the size of the pods, by the way. They may not carry vehicles. I have no clue, but
so you know how you've got doors opening there. I almost think they're going to be like a clamshell that rolls out, and so the whole roof will open as well.
So the reason I open the doors like this is currently how the doors are rigged in game. Now they don't open, but the hydraulics and all the rigging is there for them to open this way. From the best I can tell. Now there could be something weird I'm not seeing, but
do you think they'll have a tractor beam in place to pick them back up or something like that?
That's a good question. I don't know. That's a great question. Yeah. Well, you heard John Cruz say that it actually does require. I've always been confused about this because with these cargo pods, I've long said that like everything's there for them to drop out. The doors are there, they hinge, everything's there. But when you ask a question like that, that makes more sense into what John Crew was saying, which is like there needs to be a more extensive redesign of that belly of the Carrack. And it's probably to accommodate things like that, picking the pods back up and, so
elevator that comes all the way to the ground, so it doesn't have the one entryway for the entire ship.
There's
a few things like that.
There's probably going to. The Carrack is also a ship, just in general, that needs some additional airlocks put in some of its entryways, so I can see it getting some sort of airlock system or something.
Yeah, it does have that one on top. But it also has the older dock on the side.
And I'm sorry, I mean like airlocks internally, so that like when those pods come out, it's got the bulkheads there. Oh, Zero State just rated the channel with 192 viewers. Zero State, salute to you. I'm gonna give you the double salute, quadruple salute. Execute just gave it to. He's playing along. Zero, I hope you're well, buddy. I hope you had a great stream and got up to some shenanigans. I have a feeling you were deep down in the Onyx facilities, but I'm not sure. I hope you're well, bud. Hope you are well. It's been a while since we've talked, but I always try to lurk in Zero's streams from time to time. So thanks for the raid. Appreciate it. You sent the Kraken overhead, obviously best ship in the game or in the future game. So wise choice there with your raid. Appreciate it. All right, let's continue on. We are talking ship showdown Q&A stuff here, everybody. We're just sort of going through a lot of the questions discussed during the ship showdown, and we just talked about the cargo pods. Now we are moving on to the next thing here, which kind of sends us back to the Apollo. We had a little bit of an Apollo discussion. For those of you that missed it, I did see someone ask if the Apollo was still being talked about, but this one specifically was about will medical begin to return with the Apollo? So I did want to talk about this just briefly. Not the I was hoping honestly that we were going to get sort of actor status tier 2 level stuff when the Apollo came in. For those of you that remember seeing actor status tier 2 on the Progress Tracker like 2.5 years ago at this point, in the description for actor status tier 2, it had things like hygiene, cybernetics, stuff like that. I don't think that's the case anymore. While it did look like a lot of work got done on it, obviously we haven't heard anything about it. I don't think we're going to get anything like that for this. I think we're going to get some level of medical advancement in the form of those medical machines we saw in the sneak peek.
Yeah, but, I was going to say, do you have the sneak peek to bring up?
I don't know if I might. Let me look. But I don't know. XQ, what do you think? Do you have any, do you, I feel like I'm kind of keeping my expectations low, but do you have any thoughts about what could be coming from a medical perspective, if anything, when the Apollo launches? I don't have the sneak peek ready, but I know most of you have seen it.
Yeah. So for me, I think it really, like with the sneak peek and the recharger, I think it really implies that we're getting into now having to pay to respawn.
Yeah.
Essentially. So there's a cost to the goo to respawn. How much goo does an S3 take compared to an S1? How many injuries do you have? So the more injured you are, the more it costs to get repaired. Real basic stuff like that. Yeah. And I think we've probably needed it for a while because there's been no real consequence to dying, especially with the at the moment you don't really lose your external items. You only use your internal items in your backpack. So there needs to probably be a bit more of a punishment of at the moment.
Yeah.
But also it literally now gives a cost of doing business to medical people.
Yeah.
And now having the tier 0 bed that you can bring to people that they can't really bring to themselves unless they're a dedicated medical ship in the Apollo. I think that's really important. And I think we'll now start to see a lot more medical gameplay evolve. And I think it's also really important, just as we're about to hit the release of scanning and stuff, and the piracy stuff kicks off. So there's going to be more people dying, more need for an Apollo. I can see where they're going.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Moving on, though, let's keep it going for the sake of time. Next question was on PDCs. This one specifically was, will the Ironclad be getting PDCs? Which was an oddly specific question that was asked, but I occasionally like these because they do open up insights and it gives CIG a very specific thing they need to answer that probably has roll-on effects, other than like a question where, for example, if someone said, will all big ships get PDCs? CIG, I think a lot of times the answer with generalized questions like that is a generalized answer where they say, well, it'll be okay, we'll assess each ship. Some ships will, some ships won't. But with the Ironclad, it forces them to say yes or no on something, right? So with the Ironclad getting PDCs, John Cruz said that no, it will not, because it is not a military ship. And that, I think, surprised some people. It didn't surprise me necessarily. I have been a little curious on how far they were going to take PDCs and how much of a thing they were going to make. I think there's part of me, and I don't know what you think about this, Execute, where I'm almost fine if the Ironclad doesn't have PDCs and other ships of that size, but I almost wish...
Player choice and differentiation.
It gives choice. Again, but I almost wish there were like blank nodes on some of these large ships that you could put aftermarket PDCs on it if you wanted, but they didn't come with the ship. You know what I mean?
Come at a cost.
It'd come at a cost.
Either blades or
it would come at a cost. I don't know. I kind of like
Aegis,
that.
like with the Reclaimer's a particularly good one because Aegis is a military manufacturer.
Right.
So it kind of makes sense to me that they would maybe have a little bit of a military extra.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Know,
and to be fair, there's certain ships CIG promised certain things with, and it just needs to happen because it's part. You know, I've said this many times. I want CIG to honor the promises on the concept ships that they've sold, and if a concept ship listed them, it should have them.
Yep.
But
and again, unlike the Reclaimer, this thing is more armored. This is designed to essentially get the stuff. Once the stuff gets inside it, you're not getting it back. It's just, and its whole job is like the I was saying before, the limo is, you know, when it's getting shot, just get out of there. It just wants to get out of there. It doesn't want to fight. I've got your stuff, suck shit, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it's doing.
Yeah. You know, Waybreak says, I think PDCs should not exist. You know, it's, I think the PDCs existing to me are just sort of part and parcel for how difficult it is to sort of defend these big ships and the limit and the amount of uplift from a crew perspective, from a defense perspective and stuff it's going to take to task these ships. Now, the funny thing about the PDCs is in the future, when our remote turrets can be computer bladed and essentially turned into PDCs, because that's what's going to happen. They're going to adopt the PDC behavior.
Yep.
I don't know if PDCs then, it almost feels like PDCs are a little bit of a stopgap until that comes online. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
If we already had that tech that you could computer blade the remote turrets, would we be getting the PDCs? I don't know. It almost felt like PDCs were a little bit of reaction to some of the things that were happening on some of the big ships. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. So, and it allows them to customize more player choice. But also, you know, we're already seeing differences because I think the real bridge ship there is the Perseus, with it's got those, you know, essentially double PDCs that they've literally said once blades come in, it'll get those blades. So those PDCs they'll essentially become PDCs with the blades.
Yeah.
But it also gives you the option. There's an advantage there as a human, you can jump into that turret and use it if the AI is not doing a good enough job. So there's an advantage there and a drawback. And again, player choice is always a good thing, not a bad thing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
next question. Classic ship showdown, Invictus, IAE, put it in all the ship shows they do in the year. The classic question, it's going to come. It always has to come. It's a standard. It has to happen. Where's the Banu Merchantman? Obviously, they've answered this 3,000. Yeah, they've answered this 3,000 times. They've not been mysterious. They have said time and time again that this ship is getting no production work whatsoever. When we originally
pretty much need a website at this point that literally just shows. It'll be updated. You know, like the roadmap. They just need to have every ship on the roadmap.
Yeah.
And when it gets an update, then we'll know. That's all they need to do. And then all these questions disappear.
But a couple of things for those of you that are waiting on this ship, and I get it. It's an unbelievable ship. I get the excitement around it. However, this is what I would say. When we were shown the original concept work being done on it when it was in like white box, John Crew was not lying. It was pretty rudimentary. I think there was one room that they actually detailed out. All the rest of the rooms were pretty like early white box. If you go back and look at it, you'll be shocked at how rudimentary it is compared to even modern concept meshes.
Same thing I was talking about before. They start with one room, get that look right, and then flow that right through the entire ship.
Yeah. And
same thing, just on a small level, like I was talking before, where they do a small ship before they roll up to the big ones. It's exactly the same thing.
In the same vein, though, I was always a little bit curious on like why the Merchantman was being prioritized anyway back then, when we were nowhere near marketplace gameplay. Now, I think CIG was just like, it's a big cargo ship. You know what I mean?
But, I think it was shops and base building, the room system. I think that the tie-in is the room system.
I also think when they circle back to this, John Crew mentioned, and I think this was kind of a big info drop. He mentioned that if all goes to plan, he would like to put people back on this ship back end of next year. I don't think he would flippantly say that because he knows how many people are waiting on this ship. I think that genuinely is his plan. Things can change, but I think it is his plan to try to get people on this ship. One thing I will say about it, though, is
the way they highlighted it at CitizenCon, where they kind of showed how disappointed that it had to be paused. I think this is the type of thing where we hear them almost shouting from the rooftop when it happens. Hey guys, the Band of Merchantman's back in production, just so you're aware.
What I think is happening, and I think you'd agree with this. This is probably, and they've said this before, this is probably going to be one of the hardest capitals to build because of the unique design language, all the shit going on. And what I think that you've seen over the last 2 years is a concerted effort to build up the ship team, not just in size, but in expertise. And by the time we get back, by the time we get to the back end of next year, there's going to be a core group of people that he can dedicate to this ship where their expertise level has gotten to the point where they can be on this ship.
They weren't training you. They were making you run the gauntlet just to see if you were good enough to make the Band of Merchantman.
And you know, not only that, but even look at things like when Paul Jones left, former CIG ship and FPS weapon art director, when he left, and there was some people that left with him, but when he left, Ben Curtis stepped into that role. And Ben Curtis has needed some time to kind of get his feet under him. He's juggling a lot of ships. And I haven't asked him this, but I guarantee you if he was asked this, he probably wouldn't have, like, day one of taking the art director job, would have wanted to tackle this shit. Let's build up to it. Let's get some work under us. So the only key point I would add, though, is that do not be surprised if this ship undergoes some extensive design changes when the new team is put on it. I do think it's going to get a concept team pass. Like, the concept guys are going to go back on it again. It wouldn't surprise me.
It depends on what level of detail they went into the last concept pass. Because the other thing is, it's been reconcepted 3 times up until this point. So this is a really good opportunity for if you're a 600i owner, take this as the ship to look at, right? So you're worried about your 600 rework. This came out in 2013, and this has had 3 reconcepts. And then it also got stopped in development. So this is if you think you're bad as a 600i, this one is on another level.
Is this or the Endeavor or the Crucible or Starliner? Which is the oldest concept?
This is the longest one. This is the November 2013. So this is 1 year after Kickstarter. It's been that long, and I've been lied to the whole way along. It was available for 1 day, and it was never going to be ever sold again.
So are you saying that when I complain about my Kraken not being in development and it's a 2018 ship, I was in the wrong? I'm glad the Kraken.
Get in line, motherfucker. Get in line. That's what I'm saying.
Real quick though, we're gonna keep moving here. Band of Merchantman. It's gonna be exciting when it does come into the game. Next one was an interesting question, and I normally would skip this one, but I do want to talk about it just real fast. There was a question that
Daft Ducks. Tux has got a BMM, a 600 and an Endeavor. Sorry, bro. I've also you got to add Crucible to that list as well, man. I've got it. So I don't have the 600i, but I do have the Crucible. So
Says here, can dedicated racks be placed in cargo ships for max lift tractor tools so that one's handy in the cargo bay? So one thing I want to add to this, it is a good question, and they said, yeah, that makes sense. Here's actually what I would prefer CIG do, though. Okay, here's what I would prefer them do. I would prefer, you remember when they talked about base building at CitizenCon and they said that you're going to be able to go into this decorator mode in your ships and in base and allows you to place stuff? I hope that there are weapon and utility racks that we can mount on walls in decorator mode. Now, they wouldn't be able to, put on every wall, but like to where you could have some custom ability in terms of where you put stuff. That's what I hope they do.
They've already got weapon racks. All they're asking for is tool racks. It seems like a logical conclusion if you think about it. And weapon ships get weapons, tool ships get tools. Or
and John Crew even said that they're tagged differently, the weapons and the utility tools, and maybe they should look at tagging them the same. So
or you need something is one that's tools, one that's weapons, and then one that's combined tool weapon. Bang! There's your 3 tags done.
I'm skipping a few questions here, like Retaliator model. We talked about modules already. We've talked the PTV. We don't need to talk about. It's a go-kart. Here's one that's good.
Real simple. They need to give us the skin that they promised us 3 years ago. Done. Next one.
Here's one I do want to talk about though, and I think I know your point of view on this one. I still am a little 50-50 on it, though, and I can maybe explain why. But they said, are we done with concept ships? And essentially, what was said is, while not 100%, we're 99% done with concept sales, not concept development, but concept sales, where a ship is shown to you as a concept, you purchase it at a lower concept ship price, and then it comes out a year, 5 years, 8 years later as a flight ready ship, and it becomes much more expensive as a flight ready ship. I think that's where I love the idea of no more concept ships in terms of we're not waiting years anymore. I do get that. I appreciate that. I like that. I think, though, I would be okay if they sell ships in a concept state if they're going into production. For example, the Starlancer TAC, the Zeus series, whatever,
I would agree with that.
Where they went in concept, you can get that early bird price, but like they're going to come out in a year. Remember they did that with the Spirit series and the Zeus series. I'm okay with that personally.
It's a little bit like they're trying to release them straight to flyable because then they can make more money straight off the bat.
Yeah.
That was always the thing. Like you can see why the prices go up and stuff like that. But I don't think they've perfected ship's design yet. You know, like after seeing the Starlancer TAC and stuff like that, that there are massive issues where if they'd done that at concept, we would have come out and said, why have you done this? This doesn't make sense. And we've got precedents in other ships where they've corrected things. So a real simple example that you remember. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just thanking a follower. Keep going. Keep talking.
The Corsair with the turrets that only shot sideways. Yeah. And then we literally complained and they made them so they shot forward. Now, we would have done exactly the same thing for the TAC.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
Yeah.
Because they didn't listen. So now that needs another fix and a pass.
Yeah.
And it'll get it eventually. But again, I think in a weird way, it creates more work for them, not less.
Yeah. It's one of those things. I've said this since the Q&A. I've said this a few times to people where I'm like, well, I still would be okay with certain types of concept. Maybe you don't call them concept sales anymore. Maybe they're early bird sales where like the ship's going into production, but like it's not going to be out for 8 months or whatever. Mm-hmm. I haven't.
All the concepts have already been done. So.
Yeah, I have just been surprised I have been surprised at how many people have really strongly recoiled from that. People are telling me, no more concepts. I'm done with. But again, I still have a little bit of leeway with it. I don't want to wait 8 years anymore. But you get what I'm saying.
The grease gets the squeaky wheel.
Yeah.
Well, it gets the squeaky wheel. Sorry, the
squeaky wheel gets the grease. Yeah.
Oh, what's happening to me? But yeah, I don't. So long story short, people only tend to complain when they see a problem. So most people will be quiet until there's an issue.
Yeah. I knew something was up though, all the way back at CitizenCon last year, where and Execute Me and you've talked about this. I knew something was up when they didn't concept sell the Starlancer build. I was like, that's weird. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now, I was thinking that it was just because the ship had a lot of question marks surrounding it with base building still probably internally at CIG, and they weren't confident enough to do that. But it still was odd for me. And we also didn't get the concept sale for the CSV FM, the fabrication one. And I remember just constantly going, man, why did they miss out on that opportunity? Because people would have scooped up that build like crazy. And now with the no new concept things, it does make sense.
They can put the price up.
Yeah.
They can sell it at that more expensive price straight off the bat, and that's why it's sat there, and it'll sit there until base building comes out. Because realistically, I'd have to imagine it's probably somewhere between the max and the TAC.
Yeah.
So I'd probably envision 270. Type thing, and when its final price will be like 290 or something like that. That seems about right to my brain. But again, they could also go the other way and make it more expensive than TAC because of popularity and closer to base building. There's a whole bunch of reasons wherever that'll land. But again, my issues with it. I don't hate on a ship to just hate on it. I hate on it because it's got issues.
Right.
And there's just some real massive design flaws in that ship that just do not make sense.
Yeah.
And again, I hope the build fixes a lot of them. I'm not hopeful, but
to me,
wait and see.
To me, it's Waybreak says there. I never saw a problem with concept. I think for me, it's about responsible concept sales. because I think we can criticize CIG as they've had some concept sales that, especially early back on the project, that were probably irresponsible in that that ship was a decade away. Those probably shouldn't have been done.
You've kind of hit the nail on the head there, because doesn't it cut off feedback and criticism of the ships? Can't we help you fix those ships? Isn't that the whole thing you've been talking about all the way along? You want our feedback on shit so you can fix it and make the game better.
Right.
So if you're coming off those concept sales, how the fuck can we give you feedback? Oh, too bad, it's been done now.
Yeah. But well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's sort of the thing. And I mean, this is the same thing that like I kind of miss. For example, I love some of those old episodes of, God, what was it? This show, Around the Verse or something, where they really showed you some of the early work on some of this stuff. And I wish there was a little bit more. I mean, I do think John and Ben Curtis and stuff, obviously it's clear that they, read Spectrum and read Reddit. They don't respond to that stuff, much at all. But like, it's obviously they read some of it, but I wish there was a little bit more insight into the early thinking on some of these ships.
Yeah. So I wouldn't have been concerned if they'd kept all those people that they'd lost from the ship team, because they had matured and they had a lot more veteran people there that knew how the ships work, right? But they've just had to train a whole bunch of new people.
Yeah.
So now you've got this mix of, we're not going to do concept sales anymore. Oh, we've got a whole bunch of new people. So essentially you've gone back to the drawing board that they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Now I still trust that Ben and John and there are other people there that know a lot better, but they are human as well, and they make mistakes. We all make mistakes.
Like,
look at me. I can't even shave my own face. I am shockingly bad, right?
Like,
so
I know this is probably too much to ask. No, chat, believe me, I know this is probably too much to ask. And I wouldn't expect this on like the Intrepid variant, but on really big ships that cost people a lot of real money. Let's use the Kraken, for example, because we know it's in pre-production. It'd be kind of interesting if people that have a Kraken in their hangar, like if they have one pledged for and it's sitting in their hangar right now, if they got an automated survey email from CIG that's like a survey of what would you like to see with the Kraken that's not currently in its concept, as it's entering into pre-production or something. Maybe doesn't have to be much. It could be 6 questions long, just sort of a mini survey. It'd be interesting if we had that level of feedback. I understand, though, that the flip side to that is that CIG has understandings about Star Citizen 1.0 that it's quite clear we don't have yet. And we don't totally understand. So it's a tricky,
I agree with you too. In hindsight, like the larger a ship goes, it kind of has more moving parts, so there's more that can go wrong too. So I'd say they probably don't need to do that so much with the single person stuff. And when I'm saying that stuff like that's exterior only, but as soon as you have an interior, that's where things start to change and the flow of things change and stuff like that. So I would say probably medium ships and up. So $100 ships up, they need to start getting some feedback. And I think you could actually go to, say, for example, you could go to members of the community and say, we're looking at building, put them under NDA. We're looking at building a mining ship, so they go out and talk to a bunch of mining people and get some feedback. Like, or even if that's haves and have nots, but like, how else are you going to do it?
Or even if your survey was even more generalized. Imagine if you sent out that little questionnaire that was not maybe specifically about the Kraken, but maybe it was specifically about Rabbit, take it easy. Jaybird, take it easy. Glad to hear that news. Jaybird says my wife's last scan showed 0 cancer. Jaybird, that's amazing to hear. Congrats, man. I hope she does well. Salute to you. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Please.
Not to take away from Jaybird, but I had a friend just get over bowel cancer too. So it's good when you hear someone coming out and they're on the other side of it. Yeah,
that's awesome to hear. Jaybird. But you could have more generalized questionnaires where it's like, what do you want to see from capital ships? Like, what features do you think, or that type of stuff?
If you can't get specific, though, but if you can't get specific, you can't fix that problem.
That's true.
So how do you do a survey? Again, let's go back to the Starlink's attack and the whole hangar issue with the corridor all the way around the outside.
Yeah.
How do you address that? There's it's a hindsight problem. Where if that had gone into concept, it never would have got to. Well, maybe it would have done, but there would have been a lot of complaints that going, why isn't this whole thing a hangar? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
How is this? The max thing wouldn't be a thing.
Yeah.
Why is this called a max when it's got no extra cargo at all?
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, you're chucking out monikers because you think it's going to sell extra things, but it just looks stupid.
Yeah.
You know, it's a style answer. It's not a style answer max. It's just a style answer.
Yeah. So, it's just, and I don't know if when a ship was in a concept phase, if they, here's the one nice thing about a concept ship, and again, within reason here on the time, but when a ship's in concept, let's use the Ironclad, for example. CIG, if they need to, can go to Spectrum and go to the Ironclad section and get a year's worth of people dialoguing about the ship. Maybe it's all garbage. Maybe someone has a terrible idea that they avoid. Maybe someone has a good little nugget that they take. I feel like there is value there. Like if I ever had John Crew or Ben Curtis on an episode of this or something, or if you ever had them, that would be a great question, which is, how valuable is that pre-concept discussion or that concept phase discussion for players?
If we all make it to CitizenCon at the same time one time, I'm going to actually pull in some favors and see if I can get as many ship people and John Crew and Ben, just the entire ship team, and all the real shit nutty people together, and just have a massive big speculation. Like, it'll be as good for them as it would be for us. I reckon it'd be amazing.
Like, I would, and the answer may be it is valuable. The answer could also be, well, it's value's limited because there's aspects of the game and the gameplay loops and whatever that forecast is for development that the players don't have that we have. And I get that. And I think it's a little bit of both, but it would be interesting to hear their thoughts on that.
You're essentially talking about, this is stupid, you're a bunch of dickheads, or I don't like the way this works, and giving actual constructive feedback, right?
Yeah.
They can't use the you're a stupid retard. That doesn't work, right? You can't just say that. You've got to say why, right? And most of the comments they get, because let's be honest, most of us they're not the hardcore group like us. They haven't learned how the game development works and all that type of thing. They don't have backgrounds and stuff like that. They're just the Call of Duty players that have wandered into Star Citizen, and they just go, this is retarded. So they have to you have to give constructive feedback, right? And CIG have said that most of the time when they go through feedback, it is a minefield. But there's more mines than empty ground.
Yeah.
So the problem is, I think they've just got to the point where they've just given up on feedback in some. Yeah. That's what it feels like. But by going straight to no concept sales, it feels like they just don't want to even hear the feedback anymore. And that's my major concern, because I'm sorry, nobody's infallible. We all make mistakes.
Yeah,
and I keep pulling out the Star Lancer as that example, but I'm sure it'll happen again.
Yeah, I agree.
We just haven't had many big ships in the last 12 months, so it's kind of, again, look, the Ironclad. Yeah. Will that come out and be perfect? I'm sure there'll be, why did they do this questions when that comes out too. Every little ship you can look at and there's just issues. Like, again, you look at Hercules. Oh God, wouldn't that be so much better if it had a tractor beam on it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you got to go up the ramp and then in. Because at the moment you essentially have one person at the bottom flinging boxes up, and the other person. So it requires two people to load. Which makes it a detriment.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick here for time, I'm going to keep us moving forward here. We're going to blast through a couple of these because I just realized I got to take dog out. One of the questions was still on hook for the battle cruiser. I just did a whole show on the battle cruiser.
He said might. Yeah. He said might be a concept sale. So I will. Might. Everyone misses the might word.
The only thing I wanted to ask you, we'll keep this quick, but manufacturer. Do you have a manufacturer prediction for the battle cruiser?
Storyline wise, I'd expect to see the battle cruiser, if it's going into production now, they either want it in Squadron 42 episode 2 or Squadron 42 episode 3. I've always kind of predicted you have Aegis, because we know Aegis is the old guard, Anvil is the new guard, and then probably some outliers in the middle like Drake and stuff like that, because they don't have their medium and heavy fighters. So long story short, I'd say it's probably Anvil, because it'll be the newest, sleeker, sexier model.
I agree.
Essentially smaller than the Bengal, but it fits in a place between the Javelin and the Bengal.
I agree.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to be Anvil. It's a really big manufacturer, and we've said for years, where the hell are the big Anvil ships? So they need at least one. So it makes a lot of sense.
I'm going to move on to another one, which is and skip a few of the ancillary questions here, like internal livery. CIG's talked about that many times before. Next question says,
when they sell it, has the interiors. So
it says here, any update on the ability to rearm, repair, refuel from hangar inside capital ships like the Polaris, Idris, and obviously eventually the Kraken, and Javelin, to be fair. the interesting news here was that that's something they're working on, and that is a focus right now. That was actually good to hear.
Pretty
I
pretty
was
simple. It's a room that ties in with the base building. So
yeah
basically, you take the hangars that you're going to be able to build in base building, and that's just it's logical to copy that code over and put it
yeah.
into the
And
Polaris.
I was a little concerned for a while they were abandoning that, just because they had come out and said, "Oh well, from inside the Polaris's hangar, you can manually my hand repair." I was like, "Oh no, I hope we don't lose that," because that was one of the things I really loved about the Kraken concept. But it is nice to see that is now focused. That's going to be great because again, those capital ships should bring on those benefits. That should be the whole point.
And there'll be more as time goes on too, like the hoses that they have in Squadron to pull over to refuel the ships. All ships have refuel ports. It'll be exactly the same in the Polaris and the others.
Next question how are drones such as repair and medical coming along? CIG was pretty open and honest and straightforward in saying that the first drones we're going to see are the base building drones, which makes sense. Again, it shows you the focus that is being put on base building right now. It is critically tied to drones at all scales, which we've seen that. The ships themselves and the vehicles that are base building are built around their capacity for both drone size and drone count. So it's coming. I mean, I think it's going to be coming. It's the interesting thing there is it's got to come day one with base building because it's the critical way that bases are built. So no surprise there.
Zero, they go back and do the Apollo, they go onto the Vulcan, they go onto the Reclaimer, the blah, 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 blah. So you can see they'll just pick one gameplay and expand it out. So the first being base building, the next simplest would be the Apollo. And then the next one after that would probably, I'm going to be honest, it might be salvage before repair because the Vulcan has to do repair, rearm, refuel. So it's got three, so it's more duplicated, difficult to do. Sorry.
I personally hope to. I know CIG is in the land of everything physicalized, everything real. I personally hope that the base building drones are indestructible, non-physical entities that are just up there doing their thing, so you can actually build the base without them crapping out or hitting a Tuvok or whatever is flying around. I don't know, whatever creature, and it goes down. I just hope that they, where it's coming down and gets hitched on a tree and explodes. I personally hope the base building drones are just freaking indestructible things that do the work you need it to do. I understand other drones, though, like the Nemo drone that does mine defusal and stuff, may need to be physical.
If they're just A to B, but eventually,
exactly.
You want to physicalize eventually. But
I personally hope CIG takes some nuance with that. So.
We'll see.
Yeah. Last question here. Any update about being able to relog and or log in from our friends' ships and beds for the crew? Now, this is something that I know a lot of people have been pretty sorely missing. We had a little bit of a talk about this, that beds are not going to have the log in, log out component, or it's not going to be tied to beds anymore. We had a little bit of a talk on this the other day, Execute, on your show. I still feel the same, in which I think there's a lot of opportunity for benefits to be added if your ship has a bed. Some of the ones we talked about was benefits or buffs to your NPCs, or having the ability to have NPCs log into your ship. But
it's how big that benefit is and how much negative does it give to people that don't have a bed. That's the other side of this you got to look at.
I would argue
like
though
5% a 5% positive buffs or something like that, and cool.
The only thing I would argue in that, I think it can be a substantial benefit. Maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 10%, whatever. The reason I think it could be a substantial benefit is because those areas generally do take up a lot of room on ships. If you take something like the Idris, for example, there is a big section of that ship that is dedicated to not just the beds. That's one part of it. Let's just talk about crew habitation in general. The beds and the common areas, like the cafeteria and stuff, if all that sort of factors into like NPC efficiency benefits, I would want it to
double
be
the length
substantial.
Of your food and drink,
right?
Things like that.
That's actually an interesting one.
Because you're rested, you don't need as much food and drink.
Does
it make it so you don't sweat as much because you've slept, so you're not as exhausted. So you know
Sure.
you can see where I'm going with this. So you have more endurance. Maybe you retain more of your XP. Because you know how they said there'll be a natural drop of stuff. So I can see where they're going with it. There's ways. I'm sure they'll get it to work. It's just I just don't want it to be too bloody annoying.
One of the other ones we talked about was maybe giving beds the ability that sim pods were going to have, right? Where imagine if you have beds on your ship, you could lay in the bed and maybe that gives you access to like logging into Arena Commander from inside the PU or whatever. Something that sim pods were originally going to do. There's a lot of benefits they could do there beyond the logins.
It's also escape pods, so maybe they just become escape pods.
Yeah, maybe. And a lot of ships there are. Yeah. So
someone said in chat before too that the Apollo is not getting the drone anymore, and that is for now.
For now,
it's coming later.
True, for now.
It's literally got the spaces there for it and stuff like that. It's just not now.
Yeah, I think CIG's kind of weighing their options there. But going back to the bed thing, it really leads to a different a point, which is I really, again, I've said this many, many times, I really do like Richard Tyer's 1.0 vision, and I call it his vision because I think it was a multitude of people coming together to formulate that, Chris Roberts and stuff. But
consolidated it.
I think Rich really gelled it down and coagulated all those disparate parts. And that presentation he gave last year at CitizenCon, I was really one of my favorite presentations. How he walked through it, I think, was great. What I would love, and I don't think it's going to be this sitcom because sitcom's really short, 2 hours, but I would hope that maybe next year's sitcom we get the part 2 of that, where Rich starts to dive into some of those things with more detail. Things like bed logging, you know what I mean? Things like, just medical. Like, what's the future of medical gameplay? He gave us kind of the once-over, the gloss-over of the system. It was a great bird's-eye view. I would love the part 2 to that presentation, though, where we start to find out a little bit more depth on all those paths he was talking about.
I think there's going to be a lot of unknowns going into next year.
Like I do
how they're going to release Squadron. Is it going to be a separate event for Squadron and CitizenCon? Is it all one big event? Is it all going to be actual CitizenCon, or is it? There's a lot of really interesting factors to see how this game's going to land for the rest of the gaming community that's not into Star Citizen. I am very intrigued. I was talking to the same friend that had cancer, actually. I was talking to him last night, and I said, if you've got time, can you, and I sent him the link for the Squadron 42 trailer. I said, can you just watch this and tell me, is this a game that you would be interested in? I just kind of want to gauge a more outsider's perspective and see what you think. And he's going to watch it and get back to me. But I think that gives you a real, that trailer is enough of a taste now that if a normie kind of gets excited and into it, then we might be on a winner here.
Yeah. That being said, we've talked a lot. I'm going to have to get going, but execute. Where can people find you?
Infrunners on YouTube, on Twitch. Tomorrow we'll be streaming. I believe it's, God, I don't know how to do time conversion. So it would have been 3 hours before we started today, which was was that for you? That was 10 or 9 p.m.
9 p.m. Yep.
So that'll be 6 p.m. your time, which is what, New York time?
Yep.
Eastern.
Yeah,
9 p.m. Yep. We'll start about then, and then run through to about when this one started today. So and we'll just go through the week's news. What we do is we do a lot of questions. So let's let people ask us stuff and we answer, and it was just a bit different. But
cool.
And then we do a recorded show once a week. So
everyone, if you're into ships and you're not already a part of the InfoRunners Discord, definitely go over there. I have a lot of interesting ship discussions over there. Obviously, watch the InfoRunners show if you haven't already. I'm sure most of you have, because they do really interesting discussions. Very much the same kind of discussions we do here. Those of you that came in from Zero's stream, appreciate you hanging around. If you're into just like spaceship talk and speculation. We do it a lot on both of our channels. We do it a lot here. We talk about gameplay features and gameplay loops as well, especially when they tie into those ships. But the ships are just an interesting prism to view a lot of this game through, because they're a big part of the way we interact with it. So
I like talking about ship with anyone.
Yeah.
I talk with a lot of people. It is fun. I think it's one of the best things about this community is you can generally, in good standards, sit down with someone and talk about stuff. It's very rarely do I run into a bag of egg that just wants to tread all over your face, so to speak, when I like healthy arguments, and me and you will get in arguments.
Oh yeah,
things
for
from
sure.
time to time, but we'll always remain friends. You get these people that are just really hostile, but generally that's really rare. We all share a passion to want to see this game succeed, and we all want the ships to be really awesome. And I think that's the driving factor for me, is just sharing that passion.
Michael Phillips asked, any SJ org news? Michael, I was just talking to someone about that this week. I'm giving you my word that we're very close. I'm finalizing a few things. I know I've been saying that, but I am very close to kind of putting all that information out there and really trying to bring people in. There's a few more people I got to talk to, but I was literally just discussing that yesterday with someone. So it is a priority for me.
He's got to get the patches and shirts made for General Grimm.
Have
to.
Yeah. Everyone, we're going to... Yes, we're going to send you over to friend of the show, someone that me and Execute were just hanging out with the other day on the captain's table. Send you over to the Astropub, Paul Shelley. Make sure you give him some StarJump love and some Info-Runners love, and say hello to him and have a great night. Execute, did you have a final...
I was going to say, ask him those lore questions that we had.
Oh, yeah, ask him those lore questions. Ask him, yeah, there you go. But everyone, I want to send you over there. I got to go take the dog out. Have a great night.
Hello.
Thank you for joining tonight, Execute. Give them the old double salute. Everyone, have a great rest of your evening. I'm starting to raid now. Do not forget, I'll be doing an episode very soon, I think maybe tomorrow, on what is required for 1.0. What are the critical things required for that? So it'll be a good discussion. Everyone, have a great night. Send you over to Astro Historian.